pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors. We've got a rather long agenda. We're going to try to move through it fast. I expected, we have a pretty extensive discussion of golf, and I was going to modify the agenda to move that forward because I thought there would be golfers here. I heard there were going to be several golfers to save time with them, but since they're not here, I know, but I'm not going to do that because they probably looked at the agenda and said, we're not coming until later.
I think that's,
Yeah, so that's fine. As we review this thing, I want to go down here, as we look at the under General Manager's report under the FY 2011 budget, there will be a motion. The motion should be in the hands of the directors, and we didn't pass that in advance, but basically it's just going to be a motion to approve that, so that's why that wasn't done in advance. I want to point out that under Old Business B, reading approval of this resolution should include cancellation of, it should be 2-85-14. And the last reference draft, 2009-11-13, just draw that out. That's an incorrect reference, okay?
which reference is that?
Excuse me?
Which one are we striking out?
Old Business B, the last line, reference draft, so
I got you.
that's wrong, okay? All right. Under New Business, Bob Thompson has got a draft of a resolution he's going to propose related to his review of alternate golf course management, and that should be in your hands, okay? And he's going to give a presentation which will support that or explain it anyway. I am going to add a committee member. There will be a member for the club's advisory committee we're going to vote on. And Marty has a minor change to his motion, which was in the package.
The one that was handed out.
And it's been passed out, yeah, okay? So without any other discussion of that, unless there is any other discussion on the agenda? All right then, without objection, the agenda is approved. And I'll start with public comments for those who want to make a public comment now and don't want to remain till the end.
Bill, I'd like to make a public comment as an association member,
You may, sir.
and that is I'd like to compliment Kerry Nelson and his team for the fantastic job that they did on the snow removal under very tough situations. I think our roads were great compared to other places I've driven in the last couple of weeks. And the same holds true for the police department and the fire department for their responses when necessary.
Okay. I think that from those people who were here during that time, it's generally agreed to position. So thank you, John, and well done to your people, Tom. All right. Then any other public comments? Yes, sir.
Randy Romblad. I live at 6 Surfers Way. Just an observation, first of all, is it seems strange that we're having a meeting in this cramped room when you've got a beautiful facility right across the way that these meetings could be held in. Just my observation to this meeting. My real comments are about Marty's motions. I don't know if I can stay for this whole meeting, but I think he's willing to try something and to take a position that says we can't try things just for the sake of trying. Trying them is burying your head in the sand. The golf operation needs help. I particularly like the motion he has about reserving prime morning tee times for sale to the package people. If that brings in $50,000 worth of revenue that you're not getting now, that makes the hole just a little bit smaller. I wish I could stay. I'm going to try to stay to hear the other board members' comments. If I can't, that's why I had to speak in the beginning. I'd like to hear what you guys could say, and I think you ought to support what he's trying to do.
Thank you, Randy. Just to clarify something, I don't think that his intention for those prime times is necessarily for package play, but for anybody.
Well, that's,
Okay,
I figure the package play could sell them faster than anybody, or if
Okay.
somebody from the Western Shore
yeah,
calls
thank
and
you.
says, I want
Exactly,
tee time.
yeah. Thank you for your comments, okay? Doug,
My name is Doug Lower. I own 20 units in here in Ocean Pines.
what's your property location?
How many would you like?
Primary.
Gotta give one.
11 Olden Court.
Thank you.
In furtherance of this gentleman's ideas, Mr. Nelson also did a great job of getting rid of the trees that were on the roads. But now getting to what I'm here for. I attended the Saturday meeting with Mr. Gomsack, and then I attended the Finance Committee meeting shortly thereafter, and had some discussions with them. Surprisingly enough, I found out that when the pool was done, was approved by a previous board, the Finance Committee did not recommend it. In fact, they had turned down the approval of the pool. As I understand it, the pool was making 150, the swimming complex was making 150,000 a year. It's now losing 250,000 a year. So we have a $400,000 slide just in the pool, in the pool's projects. I'm probably going to go over a lot of stuff that the board already knows, but every quarter we get one of these financial reports as part of the Ocean Pines report. Now, it gives what the revenues and the operating and the excess or loss deficit is each quarter. The way these numbers are arrived at is the operating expenses are put forth by Mr. Nelson and a variety of the other departments, and usually they're cut down 10 or 15%. Then they are put in here into operating expenses as part of your budget for, in this case, the previous year. And then Mr. Olson comes up with the revenue amount that basically helps to balance that. In the words of the Finance Committee, these memberships have been inflated in the past, and they were going to try to change that in the future. However, the most important number that I see on this page is this 120,000 under operating expenses not being spent. The reason that that's important is that that's what creates our deferred maintenance. If we don't spend the money that the department heads think is important the year before, we end up with a deferred maintenance. That deferred maintenance has been going on, as Mr. Gomsack said on Saturday, for many years, and now we got to make up for it. I agree thoroughly with that position. However, I've run businesses. You're running a business here. This is a $15 million a year business. When I run businesses, I go in and I take each individual section and I make sure each individual section is making money. And before I move on to another big project, I make sure I'm making the maximum I can out of everything that's there. Your guys are about to, or Ocean Pines is about to embark on a $1.2 million renovation of the yacht club. I checked with the Finance Committee, and there's nothing before the Finance Committee as to, are we going to make money or lose money? We're going to put $1.2 million into the yacht club, and we're losing $100,000 a year or better now. If we follow in the shoes of the swim club, we're soon going to be losing $600,000 a year. I think before we embark on another big project like this, we should, look into how to make money rather than just throw more money at it. Maybe we don't need a yacht club there at all. Maybe we need to increase the size of the bar and just have finger food. Maybe we need a 30,000 square foot restaurant to make money. But to just replace the porches and do some structural work and replace one of the kitchens, we're going to put $1.2 million in here, and we could lose. I guarantee we won't make any money because we're not making any changes that's going to make any money. But we're going to be losing more than what we have there now. And I don't think we need to keep this incremental deficit spending going. My opinion, you should take the pool areas and get them back on track and spend a couple $100,000 there to get them so they're making money, so that we don't keep throwing bad money after good. Those that have been here over a year, I wrote letters on for a period of time, and one of the letters was the problems that I saw with pools. Apparently nobody else thought that that was a problem. I personally believe with the number of memberships that Mr. Olson was saying for over there, 16 parking spaces is not enough. You need a locker room so that people don't have to walk to their car in the dead of winter in the cold. And the water's too hot. I would have thought those would have been easy fixes. But I think we should be attracting people and making money on, or at least not losing as much money on each individual ones of these operations, particularly the amenities, before we go over and spend 1.2 million on the yacht club and lose another 600,000 a year. When I was at the meeting with Mr. Gomzak that Saturday, the feeling was pretty much unanimous that we had deferred maintenance that we had to take care of. And that's the reason for the increases in the assessments. Well, if we were making money on the pool, and we were making money on tennis, and we were optimizing what we had coming in, we wouldn't have to continually increase the assessments. I've not looked at the 10-year plan for 10 years out, but I guarantee that the amount that we're going to be spending 10 years from now is going to be at least as much, if not more, than the proposed budget this year. I think we need to spend more time on analysis of what we need to do rather than you just throw money at it. But apparently that I'm in a minority there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other? Okay. All right, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of the January 20th, 2010 regular meeting. Are there any changes to those minutes? All right, then without objection, we'll approve those minutes. Next is the County Commissioner's report, and I have Commissioner Busick's report here. And she announces, which has been announced in the paper and elsewhere, that the Local Development Council for the slots down there has been approved. This is a 15-member council required by Maryland law that will review the county's plan on where the revenue, when revenue comes from the slots, is going to go. And it's supposed to go to offset impacts in the local vicinity of the slots location. And the 15-member council is supposed to be composed of the delegates, the mayor of Ocean City, a few other people required by law, and then local businessmen and residents. And the law says in the immediate proximity of the slots location. Okay, and generally speaking, I guess most of these people that were appointed are. I understand there's a couple from Snowville and places like that it's kind of a stretch, but politics being what it is and the way things go, that's how that was done. Yes, Marty?
Question, because I don't have it in front of me, but is it 15 members or 11 members?
It's a 15-member, but there are 11 people appointed by the county commissioners. There's 15 members on the council.
Who are the other three?
The other three?
Uh-huh.
Well, if you read the paper, it tells you where they come from, and there's I believe there's 5. I can't remember the exact numbers, Marty, but there's so many local businessmen and so many
I got you.
local residents.
There's 11 here.
There's 11, but there's 4 others that are appointed by law.
Okay.
2 being
I'll
the
look at it.
delegates, 1 being somebody else, and 1 being the mayor of Ocean City.
Mayor of Ocean City's in this
I
county.
know. Anyway, but these people are supposed to hold county government accountable for how that money is going to go. Okay, and they're supposed to approve multi-year plans for the use of that money. The next thing is the inventory of public roads, and as most of you know, we've already announced this. I believe that our three bridges have been incorporated into the county inventory, which is a good thing for us. And I went down to the public hearing on that, and there was no problem at all getting that approved. There's an E-Cycle Household Hazardous Waste Collection Day, April 24th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., and it'll be at West Ocean City Park and Ride. So that's people that have old TV sets and things like that, refrigerators, et cetera, can dump that stuff there. And there's a warning from the county on low slope, flat roof warning on the snow. But if that's not taken care of already, it's too late. So anyway, that's Mrs. Busick's report. And we'll move right along to the general manager's report.
Thank you, sir. I'm going to do a PowerPoint presentation on that screen back
I'm
there.
not moving.
Watch Dave safe.
I'm staying right here.
Okay.
You want me to cut some lights out?
Sure.
Does everybody got a seat before I turn the lights out?
There's 2 seats over here.
Take money.
Another one? Better?
That's good.
Make sure I sit on my wallet.
Share my coffee.
Appreciate that. Tom, you want to take the cover off there?
Well, as soon as I get it, I'll wait until we get it. For some reason, my lights don't work.
That's only because I drink a lot.
While I'm waiting for that, would you mind if I go through a little bit of my treasure or my
Rock and roll.
Report?
Nope.
Anything to move us along.
Yes.
Really?
First thing I want to tell you about is our 10-year task force, and that's the second thing on the, or actually it's a little bit further down on the agenda.
You're skipping the membership.
No, I won't. I'd like you to know that I got 5 new winter memberships sold this year. What we've done is expanded our programming for the indoor pool. We created an early morning lap swim, as well as several other programs that are showing some positive interest from our membership. And so far, they've resulted in 5 new winter memberships, which is encouraging to me. I'm hoping they'll turn into year-round memberships as we renew next year. And it's always good to see some growth in those membership areas. All other membership areas have been pretty much the same since we last reported in January. The 10-year plan task force. As you're aware, the task force is finalizing their report. We just finalized it on Monday, as a matter of fact. Highlights of the report set priority repairs for the Swim and Racket Club pool and decks, as well as yacht club renovations in 2010. Subsequent year plans include renovations at the beach club, country club, the bridges, pool bathhouses, as well as other amenities and infrastructures. Over the next 5 to 6 years, at least $4.2 million of capital improvements are expected. I know this is familiar to many of you because there are 3 members of the task force that are actually directors as well. Several other directors, almost all the directors at some point in time have attended all of the meetings, so Trees, before you don't go too far. I've not seen it on the screen.
There you go. The old lens cap trick.
Surprise, you can see it.
See, it's a miracle.
Okay, so what's our objective here? When it comes to the 10-year plan, we've got 2 objectives. Number one, we understand that the facilities have been they're 40 years old, and they need to be upgraded, maintained, and we're planning on that. We're trying to plan on that in a very logical and organized fashion, and that's the point of this stuff. What we intend to do next Saturday at 10 a.m. in the community center is present our plan to the membership at a public meeting. That will be held next Saturday at 10 a.m. and I think it's a good report that we have, and I'm anxious to
That's this coming Saturday, right?
this coming Saturday. Now, for those
We
that,
hope the press will
3 days
report
from
that
now.
it's been announced, it's all that kind of stuff, but hope you really play that up because we want people to be there.
and the other thing I intend to do is incorporate, it'll be a PowerPoint presentation, it'll be a fairly lengthy one, I believe. I intend to incorporate that PowerPoint presentation into our video so that those folks that are not able to attend can watch it on Channel 78, or they can go onto our website and they can see the whole presentation as well. So it's something that really needs to get out to our membership. I want the entire community to know what we're planning on doing. I think it's a good plan, and I think that the more support we have for it, the better off we will be in the long term. You should also know who the members of the task force are. Ted Maroney, Bill Stieg, Jim Duke, Bill Rako, Pete Gomstack, and Dave Stevens, as well as employees Carrie Nelson, Joe Costello, and myself. They worked tirelessly on this project. The project is twofold and fairly complicated. One is the planning portion, which is always takes some real intelligent thought and foresight and vision. And the second one is that we've actually gone beyond just the planning process and got into the nuts and bolts of bid specification development and putting some of these projects out to bid. A little later on today, or not too much longer, we're going to talk about bid proposals we've received on the swimming racket club. Those bid specifications were developed in cooperation and coordination with the entire task force, and it's the same type of system that we use when we develop the community center bids as well. So there's a lot of effort going into this. I think you'll see that on Saturday, and encourage as many people to come as possible. In addition to that, I would encourage those that can't attend to make time to view that video either on Channel 78 or on our website. Now that we're up, though, I'll finish off, or we'll go through this third quarter financial report. Okay. As everyone probably knows, our fiscal year runs from May 1st through April 30th. As of January 31st, it concludes 9 months of our actual fiscal year. So this is what we're calling our third quarter financial report. The association completed our first 9 months with a negative variance from budget of $27,229. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the background behind those numbers, but I want to remind you of a couple of things. The first slide up here now is our 9 months ended, our operating results that are unaudited for our 9 months ended January 31st. When you see parentheses on the left-hand side of the page, that's a bad thing. It means that we did not bring in as much income as we thought we would. When you see parentheses on the right-hand side of the page, that's a good thing. It means that we did not spend as much money as we expected to. So let's start. I'm going to just hit the highlights here. General administration, we have received $46,000 less than expected. Primarily two reasons. One is our interest income fell short by about $25,000 because the returns on our investment are quite low right now. And we had expected a $50,000 more in grant funding from the county, which did not realize because the county received cutbacks from the state, which were passed on to us. On the positive side, we have service charges. So we booked service charges of about $28,000 more than planned. So we net that down to about $46,000 in uncollected revenue for the first 3 quarters. We actually spent more in general administration than we expected to. That totals about $73,000. Big piece of that is $91,000 more than expected in legal fees. The good side, our consulting fees are down about 23, so it nets down to 73. The next significant one, I'm going to go down to general maintenance and look on the right-hand side of the page. We're about $23,000 under budget in that area, primarily because of wages. Now, this is something that's going to be very important. When I tell you that we're $27,000 behind plan, in considering some of the shortfalls we've had in amenity income and things like this, what you're really seeing here is a concerted effort by my management team to cut costs wherever possible. And this is a prime example. When you look at general maintenance and roads, you see those two side by side.
They're about $48,000 worth of expenses less than we had budgeted for the year. But guess what happened in February? We had, you know, I heard somebody say that the snowstorms that we saw this last couple of weeks are equal to those that happened 20 years ago, and I've also heard the late 1970s bandied about. But the bottom line is, we did not anticipate those kind of snowstorms this year, and we will have a lot of expenses, not only for overtime, but excess fuels, repairs to the plow equipment. There's a lot of expenses coming. I'm real happy about where we're at right now, but I'm thinking that by the time I give you my fourth quarter, my end of the year report, some of these savings are going to erode, and I'm disappointed about that. Dave has a question?
Yes, I do. Forgetting the second part of what you're saying, we all know about February, but going back to January, where you said we had concerted savings, let me ask this question. Are they really savings, or are you simply deferring work that we're going to have to pay for later on?
Well, look at both of those. In both of those cases, the primary number there are in the wages, okay? And what do we do with the wages this year? I froze all wages as of May 1st. Those are real savings, because those would have been, some of those are part of those increases that would have been passed on to our employees, and they didn't get them, okay? Some of them, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but some of them, I think it was about $7,000 of labor that I saved by buying new grass cutting equipment and doing it with less people, because the equipment's more efficient.
Well, you answered the question, Tom. I'm just asking that because I think it was inferred in the public comments earlier that, you know, these deficits that we show now are simply things that we're deferring and going to have to pay later. Okay.
And that's not the case, obviously.
And that's not the case. Okay, that's the question.
Okay. Next item you'll see there is police. Police is down by, expenses are under by about $27,000. Again, major portion of that is wages, as well as about $7,000 in gas. Recreation, we collected $4,000 more than we planned, and we cut $19,000 out of our expense areas. Again, wages, the primary piece of that. This page represents what we typically call our municipal services. These are the kind of things that are just standard for the organization. I'm going to flip to the next page now, and those are all our amenities, our recreational areas. You'll see up on the first line, aquatics, we brought in almost $33,000 less in revenue than we expected. To offset that, we've got savings of about $10,000 in expenses that we've cut. Major piece of that is wages. One of our toughest expenses is our utilities, which are about $16,000 over. I know when I got my gas bill last month, it was kind of knocked me off my chair, and we've got a much bigger facility up there in the indoor pool that we're heating, and that's one of the problems with the cold temperatures we've experienced this year. Under marinas, we brought in about $13,000 more in revenue from that department, and our expenses were down by about $4,800, so we're in a good shape there. Beach parking, we've kind of, we had $4,800 less in permit sales, but we've also shaved about $6,400 off in wages, so they kind of cancel each other. Our golf revenues, you can see there, we were $122,788 shy in our revenues over, and that's spread over fewer dues, fewer card fees, fewer greens fees, and less driving range income. And we saved about $6,200. But I want to stop there for a second, and just because this is where I really think we've done some good stuff this year. You're looking at $122,000 in income that wasn't realized this year. And still, I'm only telling you about a $27,000 deficit overall for the entire year. So, you know, that kind of is reflective of the kind of effort that my staff has made in counting their expenses whenever and wherever possible.
Tom, I have a question on the cart fees. I thought that was a moneymaker.
They are. What you're looking at there, John, is the amount of the budget versus the actual. We budgeted $24,000 more. The actual income is significant. It's probably
Just didn't make as much as we budgeted.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's about 275,000 for the 9 months in cart revenue, but it's less than budget.
But good question,
It'll be
because
300 by the end of the year.
thank you for pointing that out, because when I
It
show you
costs
these, what I'm really
265.
telling you is that when you look at those numbers, you're looking at the difference between the actual money that I collected and the amount of money that I expected to collect. And that's the difference. So I'm glad you brought that up, John, thanks. Okay, other areas. Turn Grill, we did about $10,000 less in food sales than we thought. Our expenses were $12,000 down as well, so overall we're in better shape than we had planned. Beach Club, we collected about $15,881 more and saved about $807 in expenses, so it's helped to offset a lot of those expenses for us. Some of the other expenses for us. The big news, I think, is in the Yacht Club. Our net revenues were about $20,000 higher than planned. Our expenses were almost $78,000 lower than planned. And I'll show you, one of the pages that I'm going to show you a little later on is what our forecast is and where we expect to end the year. And that's where some of the good news is that I have for you.
On that yacht club, if I may, this is telling me that the food and the banquet, beverage and food,
Banquet.
without the banquet business, we would have been
would've lost
below
money.
budget by another 35.
Right? Sure. Yeah.
So our regular open the door on Friday nights is killing us, but the banquet business is bailing us out.
Frankly, that's been the pattern now for many, many years.
Okay, I just want to make that clear that
Okay. All right, so let me just kind of stop and summarize for a second. What were our problems this year? Well, we had county funding cuts that we did not expect. They represented about $525,000, primarily in roads and the police. Our golf shortfall, about $120,000, and our aquatics shortfall in revenue, about $33,000. And as I mentioned before, the entire deficit for all departments for the first 9 months was only $27,000. We had to overcome all that. So, what did we do? Go ahead, Mark.
how much is roads and how much is police?
Roads 475 and
Yeah.
475 and 50 for police.
For the police.
Thank you.
Okay, so some of this you've seen before because we've already talked about it in the last couple of presentations on the quarterly reports. Well, what are the things that we didn't just start trying to manage these problems yesterday? We spent the last 9 months managing them. 2000 on road paving, we deferred that altogether. That's a $450,000 cost. All salaries were frozen effective May 1st. There was somewhere around $56,000 that we saved. We reorganized food and beverage and aquatics, and you saw those results when I just showed you the expense reductions in those areas. We took one maintenance full-time position, we reduced it to part-time, and that saved us a substantial amount of money. And as I mentioned, we bought new grass equipment, more efficient than the old, and we're able to do the grass cutting all summer long with less labor. What else did we do? Well, starting with the beginning of the year, we modified our health care benefit plan, and that helped us to reduce our premiums. Public Works and Roads, I mentioned, this is a little bit redundant because we already talked about this in those first couple slides. That was a $48,000 savings over the first 9 months. Police is under by $20,000, Yacht Club's under by $60,000. This is the forecast number that I was telling you. Now what this is you see the departments on the left-hand side. You see in that second column the revenues that we've collected for the that we expect to collect, the expenses that we expect to spend, and the net is the forecast, which is our expenses, our revenues and our expenses reflect our actual 9 months of performance, as well as estimates for the last 3 months. Okay? So what you see in the third column there is our forecast net, and that is what's our 9 months actual plus our estimates for the last 3 months in revenues and expenses. The difference between the revenues and expenses is the net forecast. We compare that to the net budget. They pretty much go all over the place. Some of them are over budget, some of them are under budget, but I really want you to focus your attention on that subtotal line
and the far right-hand column. And you'll see $514,217 in deficits. Okay? Think back for just 2 slides ago, what I told you about the county funding. It was $525,000. My total deficit overall is $514,000.
In revenue.
So what you can see here is if I didn't have those losses in the revenues from the county, I'd be in great shape right now. I'd be in great shape right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what you see below that then is how we allocate funds to different areas, bulkheads and waterways, the contributions that we make to the reserves funds, our new capital expenses, placing money in funds for those, our sports court loan principal and our skate park loan principal. Let me just touch on that. I'm going to mention that in a minute, but you notice I've got no forecast net amount for that skate park loan principal. It's 0. It's a conscious decision by us not to borrow the funds, but to do an internal borrowing for that, so that, and why would we do that? Because our investments are generating somewhere between 1% and 2%, and
Closer to 1.
yeah, closer to 1%, and our loan expense would be in the neighborhood of 5 or 6%. So, doesn't it make sense? Okay. This slide is our capital summary. It's for our 9 months ended January 31st. I've got departments on the left-hand side. Each department has funds allocated or spent between 3 basic areas. New capital, which is paid for from the dues. Replacement capital, which is paid for our reserves fund. And future capital, which is a separate fund that we maintain. Okay, I'll give you just a minute to scan those. I'm not going to go through all those.
That the variance as of the 31st, not as, there's no forecast.
Right, that's not a forecast. That's the actual third quarter.
And then we'll get a forecast, will we?
No, but, well, I'll tell you what, you almost know what, I can almost tell you.
You're gonna be on pretty good?
Well, remember, I'm gonna, in a little while, I'm gonna ask you to approve a bid for a swim and racket club thing. So that was an unbudgeted project that came up while we were doing our plan investigation. So we're gonna spend more than we expected to, but.
Don't you have another slide on the capital, on the reserve accounts?
Sure.
You'll see the projections of the year.
But other than that, these projections should come out, we're doing pretty well budgeting and executing on the capital side. Is that correct, generally speaking?
Yeah, what we had planned to do.
Yeah.
It's the unplanned.
It's the unplanned,
Pop up.
okay. All right.
There you go.
This is the one, and this is the one I like to call what's in our checkbook. You know, the first line on that thing says that when we started our fiscal year way back on May 1st, how much money did we have in the checkbook? You'll see in the replacement reserves, it was $2.4 million. Our waterways account, which is the bulkheads, had a deficit of $101,000. Our roads had a $67,000 balance, our golf drainage had $100,000, and our future projects had a negative variance of $83,000. Okay. When we start the fiscal year, we start with the checkbook balance. Okay, what happens then? We collect money and we transfer it into these funds, and then we spend money out of these funds. And that's where you see, that's what you see in those next 2 sections, which is transfers from operating and transfers to operating. We contributed $1.6 million to our replacement fund. It generated about $34,000 of interest, and there was an adjustment that we made for prior year transfers. Then we spent $1.8 million in capital replacements, leaving $2,158,000 in the bank as of January 31st. Okay? What will happen in the next several, now the question is, what's going to happen between January 31st and the end of the year? And this is where, Bill, we answer your question about the forecasting. We'll put a little bit more money in, $5,000. We'll take out $433,000, and we expect our balance to be at the end of the year at $1.7 million. Okay. Over to the bulkheads waterways. We spent $101,000 more than planned, primarily because we had failures in our bulkheads that we had to address that weren't part of a scheduled budget. We put another $828,000 in it, spent $508,000 and have a balance of $219,000. We expect about another $162,000 of expenses before we end the year. We should have a balance of about $56,000 when we start our next fiscal year on May 1st. Roads, as I mentioned, we deferred any repaving this year. However, we did contribute about $81,000. We spent about $207,000, and we expect to spend another $127,000 before it's all said and done. And what is that? That's the Pintail project that Wood Duck drainage project that we approved a few months back. Under the golf drainage, we started with $100,000. We put in $253,000 and transferred another $80,000. Spent $363,000 and have a balance of $72,000 at the end of January. We'll spend another $24,000. We should have a $48,000 balance when we start next year. Future projects, $83,651 deficit. Okay, and we're talking, about $30,000 contributed, as well as $14,000 in donations. Spent $64,000 with a negative balance of $118,000. Remember what I mentioned earlier? What we did is we were originally planned to borrow money for the skate park, decided not to do that. It's a deliberate action on our part that creates the deficit, and in the long term, it's a good thing because we will avoid the interest cost of borrowing funds. So let's total from left to right. And what happens? We started the year with $2.4 million. As of January 31st, we had collected money and we spent money, and we had a $2.2 million balance. Between January 31st and the end of the year, we will take out $162,000 in operating expenses and $585,000 in capital additions. We will have a balance of $1.5 overall. And that's our third quarter report, folks.
Yes.
Could you flip that back one? Please? Just one observation. Tom talks about that being, the checking account, $2.4 million starting the year. This is kind of like the savings account. What you don't, because this is all capital reserves, what you don't see is the operating account, which has a $500,000 deficit in its checking account. So, in fairness, the whole checking account.
And growing.
Well, the deficit this year is only $27,000. But the point is, we have another $500,000 in deficit from an operating standpoint, which we're addressing through the,
Total deficit, but the amenity deficits are growing like weeds.
well, 27,000 is the projected, yeah,
So
okay.
Pete, what you're saying is it's $1 million.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments?
Two accounts, one's a deficit, one's
I'd
positive.
just like to restate it in a little bit different way for those people who didn't bring a calculator with them. I think at the end of the third quarter, the golf season is over. The pools have been operating. We've lost money from the county. And the deficit amounts to $3.25 per household.
Which is down
That is true.
considerably from the year before.
That is very true.
Okay. These quarterly reports we started about a year and a half ago with some resistance from a lot of people, but we have got to continue doing this every quarter. This is a good thing to do. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Art.
Okay.
The next thing in the general manager report is, go ahead.
The swim and racket bid. I just mentioned to you that when we were going through our forecast, actually when we started our 10-year plan task force initiative, we started investigating the condition of some of our facilities. One of the things that we discovered, and it was not even on our radar screen when we started this process, was that the pilings that were holding up the deck of the swim and racket club pool showed considerable rot, and it kind of skyrocketed to the top of our list of important things to do. And we put together some bid specifications and we circulated them. The bids came in last Friday. Our 10-year plan task force reviewed the results of those bids last Monday, and we're presenting it to the board today with our recommendation for for letting a contract for that project and getting that pool back online by Memorial Day weekend, if at all possible. I'll just summarize some of the bids. We had 4 bids. I think we had 16 bidders attend the mandatory pre-bid meeting. We actually got 4 bids. We asked for 2 alternates. Give us a price for constructing a concrete deck around the pool. Give us a price for constructing a composite deck around the pool. 4 bidders were Gillis Gilkerson's, Harkins Construction, All States Construction, and Haggerty Associates. The low bid came from Harkins Construction, and that was for the composite deck at $399,000. And the low bid for concrete came again from Harkins Construction for $415,600. On the high end of that range, our highest amount for the composite decking came from Haggerty Associates at $445,450, and our highest bid on the concrete came from Gillis Gilkerson at $536,000. Now, in both cases, Harkins Construction, which is a large construction company with a good reputation, gave us the lowest bids. So now what we're looking at is 2 options: composite decking at $399,000 or concrete at $415,600. When the 10-year plan task force reviewed the proposals, they came up with a recommendation that recommended that we go with the concrete. It's got a better track record than the composite, and we should have a long life on the decking, and it's $415,600, roughly about $16,000 higher than the timber option or the composite decking option. That is our recommendation.
Would it be appropriate to make,
Absolutely.
seek approval now or not?
No, I've got some questions
Okay.
first. Let's ask.
Okay.
We'll make a motion, and let's
You can make a
discuss
motion.
it.
We can make a motion now.
Discussion.
We can then discuss, sure.
Yeah, I think as the materials indicated, on behalf of the 10-year plan task force, I would like to offer a motion.
Well, you can't do it on the 10-year task force, but you can as a director.
As a director representing the views of the 10-year task force, thank you very much.
And I second that.
I move that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a contract with Harkin Contracting to perform the work at a cost of $415,600.
We got that, last year, got that written down?
Move that the board authorize the GM to enter into a contract with
Okay.
Harkin.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
You want to make it?
Dave?
I just might add, and you can give the numbers in the interest of full disclosure.
Right.
The task force also considered additional costs for the project costs above and beyond the actual cost of the contract, including the contingency. And I
You want me to speak to that?
Yeah.
This is the contractual amount. There are other costs, engineering, permits, which as we estimate to be in the neighborhood of $50,000. We also have recommended a contingency be established in the amount of $20,000. So the full cost of the project, including the $415,600, is estimated to be $485,600 for this project.
We're 15 under the budget.
Yeah, initially the amount estimated for this project before getting the bids was $500,000. And so it literally came in $15,000 under what the original projection was. Again, you go through this, you don't know whether the bids are going to come in high or low. And with respect to the beach house project up there, we had estimated $250,000, and the bids came in at $350,000, and we deferred it. In this case, we were ballparking into $500,000, and it came in $15,000 less. So I don't know that we need a motion. If we do, I'd be happy to make an additional motion or amend the current motion beyond the contract. But in the interest of full disclosure, the total cost of this project will be in the neighborhood of $485,000.
All right. Any other questions from the board?
What is their background in building decks?
Oh, excellent question.
What is the question?
What is their
What is their background in building
concrete decks?
concrete decks around swimming pool?
Their background, they actually, one of the reasons that they're so low, they actually concrete manufacturers. So they manufacture the concrete. They have an extensive track record in building decks and
Around swimming pools
commercial
and such?
construction.
Okay.
By the way, when we review these, we actually reviewed them with the architect that designed this project as well, and it was his recommendation.
And that architect's fee is going to be included in the max. Everything you're talking about for 45 is included, the engineering studies, all that kind of stuff, landscaping, everything, right?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Including
That-
the sunk costs is correct.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
We've already expended some amounts,
Yeah.
but the answer to the question is that engineering firm has really helped us under contract with us. Sat here the other day at our meeting to advise us on these bids and give his input. And so, John, your question is quite appropriate. This is a very well-known and reputable and qualified contractor.
And one other thing, Bill, I think I'd like to do this the same way we did the community
Well, I'll
center.
get some, yeah.
In the way we spelt out all the costs in our motions, so that that we start going down the road with a particular way of doing business, which when we did the community center, we spelt everything out to our.
All right, I have a couple of questions to ask about that, more specific than just, anybody got any other questions? Marty?
No,
Okay, the contract, who's going to prepare the contract, them or us?
We will ask them for a draft contract and have it reviewed by our,
Okay, so our history of the past has not been doing a good job with the contracts. We'll get it reviewed for legal sufficiency, and we'll have our contract review team look at it, and we'll all look at it and make sure it's clear, accurate, concise, and all that. Secondly, I was going to ask how are we going to account for all this, and we're going to do the same thing we did for the community hall, spreadsheets, all changes, et cetera, reviewed.
I expect this one to be much easier because
Much easier.
it's
Okay.
you haven't got enough time frame.
What- In the proposal, what is the completion date?
I think it's May 1st. I'm not, I'd have to double check,
But
but
it's-
I believe it's May 1st. Our whole,
In order to have it open for the season.
All right, do I have, and I'm asking, I wasn't at the 10-year task force meeting, so I don't have the answers, but I'm asking the questions because of the questions I would have asked, and maybe we need to know.
Yeah, the
We
question.
need to move out, because we need to move out to get this thing signed, so there's no excuse to be late.
Yep.
So as soon as we approve this, we want to say,
Today.
quickly,
Yep.
we get the rough contract in, we review it and get it signed, right?
Well, in their proposal, did they say how many days it would take to complete?
the bid specifications require that they get this job done by May 1st.
I mean-
No.
How many
If we don't
work
sign
days?
this until April 15th,
It's too late.
Then we ought to
it's
be
too late.
hanged.
My question
February.
is, did they say how many days it would take to complete the project?
I'd have to go back and look at it.
Okay, I think that's
My
what Bill's asking.
point made is we need to move out smartly on this effort. Like, we approve this today, Tom, you've got to get the thing and get this thing reviewed fast.
Yeah.
Now,
And frankly, they know that too.
They know that
We're
too.
all under this.
okay, so as soon as we tell them they're going to get it, they can start cranking up what they're going to do. Now, we talk about construction and concrete, we're also talking about a pool rehab portion of this too, right? That's not just concrete, this is a turnkey package with a major renovation of the pool, plumbing, and all that stuff. This is not just a concrete deck.
Yeah,
It includes rails, everything's got to be done, right?
Did that extend to the kiddie pool?
No.
that's fine.
Yeah, and we did, by the way, Bill, relative to your last comment, during the meeting, we went out and verified who their pool contractor was,
Which is who?
and that's a good
It is
question.
Jarvis? Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, again, they have a reputable pool. They weren't lowballing us. Yeah.
Okay, so we're confident, I mean, I know Ted briefed me, and I got briefed on what went on, but I mean, I just want to make sure this is a carefully examined proposal, and I know a lot of people put a lot into it, but we've got to tie the knot here and get it done, okay? So, any other discussion?
Yeah, I think in the interest of what we've just talked about here in the full disclosure, I'd like to amend the motion, Marty, with your permission, and simply have the board also authorize, in addition to entering into the contract, the expenditure of additional $70,000, including what has already been spent in this project, to its full cost.
Here's what I was going to have for the motion is going to say, GM here is hereby authorized to enter a contract with Harkins Construction in the amount of $415,600. Further, the full cost of the project is expected to be $485,000, including permits, engineering, and contingencies.
Do we, okay, so we,
It's your motion.
That's how I remember it.
No,
that's how I remember it.
the only difference is I was suggesting that the board authorize that.
Yeah, well.
So I'd like to stick with the amendment that says, and also the board authorizes the expenditure of an additional $70,000 in connection with the project,
To cover the following things.
including costs already incurred
And the contingency.
and the contingency. Okay?
So we understand.
So it's just not information, the board has actually
Well, it's not a
authorized that.
slush fund. Okay. All right.
Marty, I've made that as an amendment, would you
My second
second it?
stands.
Okay.
All in favor of the amendment? Any further discussion?
Only to mention that the environmental committee, who was present at the meeting, sees no problem getting a grant for landscaping there.
We'll see. All right. That will save us.
And is fully supportive of this project.
Okay. So if
Call the
there's no
question.
further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Good.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Tenure Task Force. Tom?
Tom, what direction are you going here? We got your report in the left hand, and we got the,
We're following
we're
the
skipping
report.
all over this. Are we staying with the report?
What do you want to do, Tom?
I'm fine with either one. I can, you know.
Let's do the report.
Okay, next would be the budget.
Wow.
2010-2011 budget.
Oh, dear me.
All right, as you are aware, we conducted the public hearing on the proposed budget on Saturday, January 23rd. We're recommending the adoption of the budget today. I'll tell you what, I kind of struggled with this a little bit because frankly, I believe in the $45 increase, and I believe in the where we're going to take that money and put it to use. Okay, I made some modifications here, trying to be sensitive to the comments that we received from the public hearing. I don't think they go as far as some of those folks that didn't want to see any kind of dues increases, but I do also have a concern about what happens. I'm going to suggest a couple of changes to the budget, okay? But I'm going to tell you that in order to adjust this budget and balance it, based on what we had to do to accommodate the fire company, I had to shortchange my reserves fund, okay? We spent a good deal of time today looking at reserves and talking about, you know, where we're at and how many projects that weren't planned that we needed to do just because, you know, conditions required it. And I'm telling you, I'm going to end up putting less money than I had. What I found here is about $5 worth of dues that I can defer from the operating expenses in some of the other areas. And I've got two options. I can recommend that you reduce the dues increase by $5, or you take the $42,000 that I can save here and move it over into the reserves contribution. So,
Okay.
Do you have more to say, or you want?
the only other thing I want to say is the board had asked me to come up with a recommendation on the food and beverage operation. Okay, and when we met with the Budget and Finance Committee, we had looked at several different options. The board said, Tom, sit down with your staff, come up with your recommendations. Well, I went one step further and I said, okay, I'm going to sit down with my department head, food and beverage manager Joe Reinhardt, but I also want to engage my club's committee, so I asked Bill Wentworth to sit with us, and I also said to myself, okay, if I'm going to involve the country club operation in this revised plan, then I should have a representative from my golf community, and I asked the chairman of the bog, Bill Hickey, to sit in with us too. So we went over the revenues and the expenses on a historical basis, what we typically can expect to generate during our off season, which is September through April. And we debated as to whether or not we should have, should we have any food and beverage service offerings during that period? B, if we were, what kind of schedule will we have, and how are we going to set it up? Okay. We created a separate memo for you, and it's in your packet. But in the end, we recommended that we move operations over to the country club from Labor Day until after the New Year's Eve party on December 31st. And that has a cost impact of about $84,804 to do that. On January 1st, the facility would close and would not reopen until the yacht club opens in May of 20, let me get my years right here, 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Fiscal
We're talking
12.
about the country club upstairs. Actually, the Turn Grill does reopen in mid-March.
Thank you, Art. And one of the proposals was that we would try and move everything downstairs to the Turn Grill early on, and that didn't receive any kind of a warm and fuzzy from anybody, including yours truly. So the idea of operating out of the Turn Grill is now abandoned. What we envision upstairs would be a pub-like atmosphere on the right-hand side of the room, around the little bar with high-top tables and some other types of seating. And then if we're going to have small catered events or catered events, we would try and set them up on the left-hand side of the room and try to operate in many cases as both at one time. We would need some judgment calls in certain times when there'd be large group events where we would have to possibly cancel a la carte dining to accommodate a larger group.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, with other clubs.
So that's the recommendation.
What exactly, we've had a lot of discussion at different meetings and different kinds of meetings, even in with board meetings. I don't really get the purpose of closing after January 1st. What does that do for us?
Well,
If that's a successful operation, why would you just close it on January 1st? What's magic about that?
Yeah. Actually, it was trying to strike a balance, Les. What happens is what we did was we looked at our 12-month cash flow schedule. Okay, it said how much revenues do we expect to bring in, how much of our expenses do we expect to incur, month by month by month. And you see, what typically is happening over the course of the off season is you can see that the subsidy, the excess of expenses over revenues,
The loss.
from January to April just gets larger and larger. Christmas parties and that type of thing tend to offset December. November, you have just a couple of minor, November's not a great month, frankly, but you got Thanksgiving in there, you still have, some activity. When the weather's warm, you kind of get a little bit of a jump. But once the cold weather sets in, trends are that many of the people here go south for the winter, or they take their vacations and things.
So what you're saying is that the losses incurred up to the December 31st period are much more modest than those occurring in the January, February, March timeframe, right?
But a loss just the same.
A loss, just no question about it. No question.
So, although these are not my words, I think they fit very well. What we're doing, what somebody's doing, is planning to fail. You're planning to lose money after January, therefore there's no point in doing it. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. None. I think maybe if we planned further out and we did in fact lose money, then we could always close it off. But now, there's nothing we can do with it now. If you pass this and say you're going to close January 1st, suppose it turns out to be a venue that, wow, everybody likes going over there. What happens then?
I would think the gentleman, you speak for yourself, but I think I know what I'd do. What would you do?
If I had a $20,000 or $30,000 profit at the end of December, I'd be saying, guess what, guys, I'm recommending that we keep this party going
Absolutely.
and
It's a budget.
By what method? You'd revisit it with the board? You'd have to do that?
sure.
Well, looking at history and believing that we can't make money, I'm sure we're correct. However, I believe, and I've said this before, that if we had a plan that would in fact do things differently, and we would target enough people to come in, how many people we need every day to come into the place, and generate enough marketing, sales, calls, parties, etc., to make that happen. I personally believe we could. But if you're the general manager and you don't, then no way we should force this on you. Yes,
I know everybody says that I live in the past.
you do.
June of early 80s, the bar, back when we had a bar in that country club, did more in gross sales revenues than the bar at the yacht club is doing now. Now think about that. There were half as many houses, probably a third as many people living here. But we generated $800 a day in liquor sales.
No, Artie, if I was going to, can I say something? If I was going to counter your argument and be negative, I would say that there was no Village Inn, there was no Marina Deck, there was no there was no Steer Inn, there was none of those. There is a lot of competition now, which does in fact enter into the equation.
Oh,
No
in that
question
case,
about
you're
that.
right. Les, we got to give up.
So, I mean, but what I'd like to do before we decide on this is I'd like to depart from the rules and ask the chair of the club's advisory committee for his observations on this. Bill, would you do that?
First of all, if you look at the memorandum of the report, in there is a marketing plan, not detailed but laid out how is recommended for us to incorporate and get people to come to the country club during this time. And basically, we're talking about using the leadership of the community, the various advisory committees, appealing to their chairs and whatever to get people to come. We need to make better use of our marketing director, Teresa, to do this thing. It's based on the numbers that we calculated and figured that to break even, we would need 120 people a day spending $20 per person to do that, make that $84,000 deficit. Now, we can look at it as the glass half empty and say at December 31st, close it. Or we can look at it as the glass half full and say, well, this is going to work. And we're going to get people involved and this is going to work. And we go through it. And then if it doesn't work, you can always back up and close the place. Just like if you have to close the place because you have a big activity going on in there, and you can't keep the place open because you have a banquet or something going on in there.
But the banquets help.
Oh yeah. The banquets help, but since you've given me the floor and opportunity to say this, I'll address it now. The regular food and beverage operation, per Marty's comments earlier, are not as big a detriment as he seems to think. It's doing quite well, and not as well as we would like. And in fact, at the end of the third quarter, the yacht club is at a plus in revenue.
Against budget.
No, not against budget.
And, that's
Bottom
not-
line.
and it's also not true. I mean, let's stop a minute. It's not true. Our revenues at the yacht club are less than they were a year ago and less than
I'm
budget.
talking about the bottom line.
I'm talking about.
No, revenue is revenue. Revenue is top line.
Right.
That's what he said, right? Revenues?
That's it.
Yeah, revenue is
No, he
top
said
line.
bottom line, he said net.
I said net. I'm talking about bottom
Well,
line.
that's a whole nother category.
Okay,
they're two different things.
Okay, so anyway, I think representing, and I think I'm the pulse of the club's advisory committee here, that the proposal in itself, I think, is a good basic proposal, and the idea of how we promote it and whatever is good. But I also support the idea that we shouldn't short sell. The committee doesn't support the idea that we short sell the potentiality there. We can always, if it's not operating, say, well, we're going to stop operating at the end of whatever day that is.
Well, do you think that the clubs of Ocean Pines would step up and increase their own membership or their own use of the facility if we let them know we needed to do that to keep it open?
Well, that would be I can't, you can't project what they're gonna do, but that would be the thing you would hope that they would do. In fact, the community would speak for itself.
Well, under
If the
this,
community wanted it open, then they would step
well,
up.
we could tell the community that our plan is to shut it on 1 January, but if they can demonstrate use in October, November, December, through participation, we would be more than happy to keep it open.
Bill,
You know?
excuse me, were you not working with Bill Hickey on this?
Yes.
Okay, and I already know his opinion, but I'd like you to confirm it. I mean, from the golfing perspective and use perspective, those are the principal users, a group of principal users of the yacht club during the wintertime. But I believe that he had confidence that by encouraging this thing and by planning it out, that in fact, you could make good use of that country club during the 3-month period.
Yeah. Oh, did I say?
No. I just wanted
I said
to.
the
Dave, which
committee-
3-month period are you talking about?
I'm talking about the January through
Okay,
March, or
Okay,
you know.
January, February, March.
And I've heard comments from people
Well,
in
Bill,
the...
to answer your question, Bill Hickey was part of this, was one of the members part of this committee, and he's wholeheartedly supported what's here.
Yeah, okay, that's what.
And I've heard comments from other people in the Budget and Finance Committee and places like that that have said the same thing.
Somebody
but-
right behind you there that
but,
might
you know.
want to say something too.
Well, all right, well, since we're departing from the rules, go ahead.
Yes, I guess as representing the Budget and Finance Committee, when we first addressed this issue, before the revision that has been done here, we had proposed closing it down and keeping it closed because the projected loss by keeping it open the whole time was about $87,000 worth of loss. This adjusted approach, which takes it till January, which leaves open the opportunity to still eliminate the biggest loss months, which is January, February, and March. I will go out on a limb and hope I don't get shot next week. As a member of the Budget and Finance Committee, I would say the idea of keeping this thing open until January with the challenge to the community of stepping up and utilizing it, saying if you want it open after January 1, then come on out and use it. If you don't come out and use it, we will have no choice but to follow the plan of record. The plan of record would be closed, but that budget plan can be adjusted to keep it open. If it's making money, then you come back to the board, and I'm sure the Budget and Finance Committee would say, you're making money? Keep it open.
Or minimally, if it's at least paying for itself. Because the idea,
I'm not talking in the sense, you know, a dollar here, but I think the Budget and Finance Committee, I believe, would support this proposal with the caveat that if it in fact is doing well, and in fact is breaking even or making $1 or $2, and looks like it could continue, that you keep it open.
John?
My concern about setting a closing date of December 31st, from a management perspective, I have to agree with Les that it may be very narrow vision because we're going to think that maybe we can't go beyond. I would much rather make the commitment to keep the club open all those 5 months and relook it as we go down the road, but with the emphasis of keeping it open, pushing marketing, the whole 9 yards. Because otherwise we may stop marketing in December. And we don't know what it's going to take to get people out. And to me, sometimes when you put a mark on the wall, as I said before, well, you know, we had 10 deaths in the company last year, so we're going to set a goal at 3 this year. Well, that's fine, except for the 3 people who may die. So I'm kind of concerned about that we got this negative idea on the table. I would much rather go for the gold, okay? And I understand where the committee came from, and I believe this is a committee's recommendation, saying closing it in January. But I just believe that we're going to kind of back off and say, then we're going to begin focusing on opening up the new place. And I just think it's wrong because we're letting our people down. I think you can make a go of it. I really do. And if we do have a small loss, so be it. But at least we went ahead and did it. Marty, for one, wants that thing open, and I would assume that he'll be going around knocking on people's doors, getting people to come to the club to show that he can bring it back to the 80s.
Hell, Marty can support it himself, for crying out.
That's just my opinion.
I haven't
Yeah.
voted yet, and that's.
I just to point out, and this is something that's been bugging me, I'm glad I had this with me, but I'm looking at the year-to-date numbers. This is the big report, and I'm looking at net operating for the yacht club. We budgeted net operating for the month of January, 41,000. In fact, the net operating was minus 27,000. And so I'm sort of questioning whether or not we were not overly pessimistic in the budget fund, which is a good thing to be, in ascribing the amount of losses that would be saved if we close it down. That's a big difference, $13,700 difference. Year-to-date actual, through January, through the month of January, net operating is $39,000. That's plus $39,000. Now we're gonna, of course, we're gonna lose in February, I'm gonna lose in March. It's plus, but that is it is $98,000 different than the budget, which was negative $59,000.
That's year-to-date, right?
This is year-to-date. We haven't got too many more months to go to get.
We're about 100,000 ahead of budget, right?
We're about $100,000 ahead of budget for the yacht club and running a positive right now. Now, all you don't have to improve on those numbers too much to be able to, to make it up.
What's your conclusion there?
And my conclusion is that the original premise was probably based on overly pessimistic numbers, and it's not. We're doing a whole lot better than that right now. And that by keeping the club open during this period, there is at least the promise that we will, lose a significantly amount less money than they're projecting, and in fact, maybe even make money.
Okay, let's, just so we understand, our revenues are down, okay? But we've got this great swing in operations and at the bottom line. And in order to increase that and make it better, we would cost savings are heads. We have no executive chef, we have no assistant manager. We're suggesting we cut back on hostess and wait staff in a facility whose biggest complaint is service. Let's face reality. The yacht club is not having a red letter year. It's having a slash and burn year. We have no help. We've cut the budget next year, 160. Now I understand it's going to be closed part of the year, but now maybe it's not. Maybe we'll go over to the country club. We've cut 165 foreign salaries at the yacht club alone.
So
it's easy to make money by firing people.
Right. So
every time I fire somebody, I get a $50,000 increase.
So what are you saying we should do with the yacht club in this budget?
My feeling on this was, I'll try to make it short and brief, was when we evacuated the country club over to the new building, we should have gone in right away and turned it back into an operating business. We haven't. What we have is a rundown, wore out, cruddy looking facility that if we sell one wedding in that building, I will be... That's all.
Yeah. On that revenue.
Without banquet sales, we have proven we can't break even. We can't come close to breaking even. So all we're opening this building up for is the people, our good customers that are in the yacht club now, but costing us a lot of money.
Right, we've got to change what we're doing, or we should close.
If we don't change what we're doing, if we're not going to go in and build a nice bar in there, you can't expect even the yacht club regulars to go to that building if there's not going to be a bar.
In terms of revenues, you're implying we're way down. And again, I only look at the numbers.
Not way down, down.
Yeah, we're down, in gross revenues, we're down year-to-date 1%.
$20,000.
$10,000, well, $20,000, yeah, $20,000 in gross revenue, or net revenues, I should say.
And we've got January,
Which is-
February,
which is-
and March to
which-
look at.
which is about
Those have
four.
always been real bang-up months for us.
Which is, no, this includes January.
Okay, February and March we have to look forward to.
Just a couple
I'm
quick
gonna
things
send
as I sit here and listen to all this. Tom, you had recommended, you think what Tom Olson's plan is reasonable.
Yeah, with
this
the
point.
caveat of the option of keeping it open.
Option
if
to keep
does
it
well.
open. Bill,
If it makes money.
you
anybody
also
can
agree
say
with that, and you're the advisory committee for us for the club's advisory. We've got two groups of people that are here to advise us. We have our general manager saying, here's what his plan is. All great intentions of everyone saying, yeah, it'd be great to keep it open. If we're pumped up, we can do it. Rah, rah, guys, that sounds great. But to me, we've got two advisory committees agreeing with our general manager, let's shut it down in January unless the community responds. Why are we, I guess everyone has opinion, but I think that's a great idea, great compromise. And with the advisory committees advising us of that, that makes sense to me, with the option to open it up if the numbers come.
Amen.
That makes sense to me, too. I want to clarify one thing, Tom, Terry. The original position of the committee, the Budget and Finance Committee of it is, was not to keep it open until December, but to
No,
shut it
it was to
down
shut it down.
later.
Understood.
Okay. So this is a modification, which Tom is saying, as one individual, yeah, that makes sense. Let's, right? Let's,
Yeah.
I'm fully supportive of exactly what you just said. Let's give it a go until December as the budget currently reflects. And if it's successful, by God, I'll be the first to support keeping it open, as I think we all would.
How do we define success?
That's a good
And-
question.
Good question.
Valid
You know what, there's, I
Depends who
mean,
you ask.
there is a
40 people there.
little problem with that. You know, it sounds good, but the difficulty is that to make it a success after January, you're gonna have to plan events well before you find out what you're doing
Yeah, you gotta do something different.
in December.
You're gonna know by the end of
November
September.
and so
You
forth.
need to do something different.
You would have,
All right.
the end of September is probably,
One last thing.
right, yeah.
One last thing.
One, yeah.
We have a fair amount of time, though, between now and that particular moment.
Exactly.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay? So we could approve this budget that reflects the general manager's, and I've got the motion that reflects that particular item through December 31st. We've got time between clubs and creative thinking to come up with more specifics that say, hey, we can make this go, and then define success that way.
True.
In the meantime, we've got a budget to guide us that says through December 31st, and here are the numbers.
True. Did you have anything else you want to say, Bill?
Yeah, I think one item,
One item.
one statement with regard to all this. Being a behavioralist, I'm well aware of the fact that behavior is learned. So if we absolutely shut the place down, then people are going to learn to go other places, even those that have. If we can keep it operating, then they haven't looked for another place. Behavior is absolutely learned.
Okay.
So just.
Then I'm gonna return to the rules. Okay?
That means we need.
And I want to make a
figure out
comment.
behavior.
John, you used a military analogy, didn't you? Okay? And
Because I've seen it happen.
And I've seen it happen. What you've done is you're going to take this hill over here, and you really want to take that hill, but you tell the commanding officer to line of departure, I'll be happy if you only get this far. And he knows you're going to take casualties going up here. He's going to stop here if he thinks you really don't want him to go there. Okay? And this is the problem we're going to have. If we're going to approve this budget, which I think we will, and we tell the general manager that, you know, if it's not working, it's okay, then that's probably what's going to happen. Okay? Unless we can count on the general manager to really know what we really want to do, and the people of the community, the membership, to try to goose us, to make us really come up with a plan that'll work, because I believe it would. Now, I also believe that if we said we're going to fire the clubs committee and fire all the chair of the other committees who said they're going to support us, fire the general manager, fire the marketing director, and fire the head of food and beverage unless it works, there may be some different activity.
Can we get Art too?
Art too, and the president of the board.
Hey, we're making money now.
You know, I mean, if we knew.
I'm not getting paid.
I'm not either. But my point being made is, if we were telling the people in charge that we really expect this to happen, and we want to see things different happen, they might happen differently. But if we don't have that feeling, they probably won't. You get it?
Well, I'd actually point out some of the stuff that we talked about in here, because I think that was in the forefront of our minds when we said, well, how are we gonna make this work? Okay, so let me just read some of these things. The whole, among the plans for implementing the transition in fall is to create an intimate pub atmosphere around the existing bar area with bar stools, high-top tables, four-top tables, shuffleboard, televisions, and other activities. Enlist the services of volunteers, community, and members to network and support social activities, so that it's more than just dinners being served tonight. It's expand on the idea of the block parties and expand on the idea of getting groups to create an excitement, create an excitement about being there.
Okay.
But if I may,
Yes.
to go back to what Bill was saying, it's about taking, from a military standpoint, it's about taking the hill. And the hill doesn't stop on December 31st. I think that's what we're saying. And if you put a mindset in there that, well, if we don't look good on December 31st, we're not going to push forward to the hill. Okay? And I hear what you're saying.
John, there's something more. Your men in the trenches, they're going to get laid off if they can't create that kind of...
Yes,
A little
but-
motivation.
All right, well, I think we talked about it enough, really, but I got to...
One last thing for John. John, I thought about your question a moment ago. How do you define success? I think in this instance, it's pretty clear. Success would be a better result than the losses inherent if it's closed. That's a pretty
Well-
low bar, I think.
Well, also, what
In other
we're
words,
saying here...
If we,
what we're
if we
also-
shut it down, we've got losses, right? If we keep it open and not have any greater losses, then that's
Well, this
success.
discussion's gone on too long, but it's good because people are going to report it, I hope, and they're going to understand we're trying to grapple with this situation, what we want to do and what we should do. Now, so,
It's more than, I think we're talking more than just about the club here. We're talking about our amenities in general.
yes, we are.
Okay? And we're talking about our community in general, getting behind our amenities, whether it be, which we're gonna have a discussion here very soon on golf, we're gonna have a, you know, so
Yeah.
the point is that there's a little book out there that says, I wish I coulda, shoulda, whatever, you know, and I think we have to believe. And if you don't believe, you never get there. And you've got to believe that we can make a go of this.
And not only that, when the persons, if they're going to support it, go into the place and they see that it's the same facility, but it looks nice and the product and service is good, they might come back. If they don't, they won't come back. So I think we talked enough about this. Okay, now let me talk about the other thing. The big decision we got here is this. What you're? I'm a little confused about your five. You're recommending two options. One is approve this budget, but reduce either the contribution reserves by $5 or reduce the assessment by $5.
Correct.
May I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or leave it alone, if you want.
Yeah. Tom referred earlier, but I'm not sure it was appreciated. After the initial board's involvement in the budget, there were changes made. And the principal change had to do with the fire department. And we agreed as a group on what that approach would be. We then sent the general manager back to reflect that loss of revenue from that budget and still come out the same, to balance it. And he did that. Unfortunately, he came up a little short in his ability to do that. And so what he did was, in the reserve contribution that had gone through the entire process, through the Budget and Finance Committee, through the board, he was left with cutting that amount by $35,000. And then came back with a revised budget. Now he's identified $42,800 of addition and poses it, and I'm disappointed at
Additional
that,
reduction.
as additional reductions, but he is now saying either you can have it a $5 reduction in dues or less contribution to reserves, right? But we already had a $35,000, this offsets the $35,000 whack that we took 3 weeks ago. So what I'm suggesting is that this 42 and that 35 kind of offset, and we're right back to where we were.
Do you have a motion to that effect?
I do have a motion. to that
Let's
effect.
read the motion, and then we'll second it, and then we'll have any
And
more
then you can have
discussions, okay?
Okay, the motion which I previously distributed was, I move the adoption of the proposed FY 2011 budget as presented at the public budget hearing on January 23rd, 2010, which budget reflects total revenues of $11,641,559 and operating expenses and transfers of the same amount, a basic assessment of 808 and capital expenditures of $2,517,928. That was in the public presentation, and that's the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
You know, the $42,000 to reserves isn't gonna make a difference. Like the $5 breaking the back on this automatic increase that was in some directors' minds a year ago. Things change. I would rather see that 4%, that $5 obviously knocked off of our already overtaxed membership. I have another question about the budget. And it was brought up during our discussions on the budget, and I don't see it in the budget. Is there still, and when we made a motion last year about a marketing sign out on 589, there was a lot of agreement to it, but it wasn't in the budget. It's still not in the budget. Well, this budget should reflect the sign out on 589, which is what I thought we'd talked about. I can't find it.
I don't know if we talked about putting it in there or not, Marty. I know we talked about a
Well, it
sign.
puts it off another year. If you're not
We didn't
gonna,
talk about it at all.
if you're not going to have the sign in this year's budget, we're not gonna have a sign this year.
That's right. And that's,
Which, of course,
we could change
nobody
it.
would know the country club was open for cocktails because nobody would know.
I would, if I may, Marty, I'm a believer that we need new signs in the Pines. We are currently dealing with antiquated marketing signs. We have about 10 of them that are manpower intensive. Some of them I fully understand should probably stay in place, but the problem is they are in fact static. The sign that you talked about
Digital.
is digital, can be managed from a central location, can
My
be
dog
changed up
groomer
to...
has one.
My only thing is this, instead of doing the one sign that you were talking about, I would ask that if you're gonna make a motion, that we look at maybe establishing 3 signs, putting them at core locations, not as big, but core locations coming in the north gate, the south gate, and at the library, so that we can understand some of the many programs that we have ongoing. Because we got multiple things going on a weekly basis, but I only see one.
John, you're probably talking about $150,000 more.
He just went to
Out of
120.
14
Yes.
million.
Yes, I'm talking about
And
150 grand.
that should have been proposed way back and evaluated by
It was
management and the
proposed,
budget,
and it was
but it wasn't it wasn't presented
not in the budget.
Well,
by
it was a-
management, and it wasn't evaluated by anybody.
Well,
So it goes for another year. Okay.
well, we can amend the motion to you know,
If
We
we
can get somebody in a clown outfit out on the highway. Country club's open.
We could amend the motion and we could, increase the assessments by that amount. And I certainly don't believe that.
Well, yeah.
We have, we have a process that starts in October, for crying out loud, of figuring out what it is that we're gonna meet. Multiple meetings about how to build the budgets. And we get down to the end and say, oops, wait a second, let's add another $150,000.
We'll probably have to add about $18 more to the budget to do that.
Not the way I would do business. And if we can go back to the original question of, what about this amount of money? I'm really disappointed even to see that option put on the table today. When you look at the budget and the uncertainty, that we have, I only have to go back point to, what was it? $500,000 in operational losses over the past X number of years. And the fact that despite our best efforts last year, we're looking at adding to that, not by very much, that's a good news thing, but we're probably going to add to that this year. And now you say, we have put together a plan last year which said through this incremental increases, we're going to take care of that problem. And you're going to change that and reduce it. How do you know that what you reduce won't simply add to the operational loss again this year? You don't. No, you're right. You're right. I personally will not take your recommendation. I think it's irresponsible.
I'm on the complete opposite side. I hate to say that. I appreciate you as the general manager trying to make some additional cuts to bring it to us as just options to consider. we as board members don't have to accept it, but Tom, I think you exercise responsibility when you brought this and tried to go back and make additional changes we had some challenges with the fire department, numbers. We were able to overcome those. We sent you back to go and redo it, and looking at some additional cuts, I think was responsible.
Oh, let me make clear, perhaps, Bob, you didn't understand what I said. Certainly, making these cuts is responsible, and I have no problem at all with that. But in looking at the options, those aren't the only two. Reducing the property assessment by $5 is, in my mind, not an option and not reasonable. Okay, contributing to the reserves, certainly that's possible and reasonable too. But another option is using it to reduce the operational deficit that we're probably going to add to the thing, to what the 500,000 that we had this year.
Perfect.
Yes,
Oh,
perfect.
that's the third
Okay,
option.
so
That's good.
So what I'm trying to say is stick to the plan, and because the plan will work.
Yes.
I agree with you, stick to the plan, and I'll say it again, the 42,000 here almost directly offsets the $35,000 adjustment made previously. Now, I'd like to address the comment of Marty, and John, I think, chimed in a little bit too. This is not the time, in my judgment, from a big picture standpoint, approving a $14 million budget, to be introducing new items like billboards and expenditures of that nature. We've had a process that started back in the fall, has involved the broader community in a general way and in a specific way, the Budget and Finance Committee, the board, various other committees, and we are where we are, and now we're questioning the absence of something that somebody wanted to propose last year. We can always add that later on. My goodness, to start to amend this proposal on a $14 million budget for a single item.
The point made is, in the overall look at the thing we're trying to do with amenities, what he said was right. Well, we can't add it now. It'd be $18 probably per assessment per lot.
It's the wrong time.
Or else
and
we
it's-
cut this by 150, so we can't do that.
And if in the process of developing this budget, other people thought that was a high priority, it would have bubbled up. It didn't. Anyway,
Okay.
I agree with Dave. Let's stick with where we are and move forward. And that's just my view.
All right. I'm going to call the question and wait till Les gets here. Maybe we should take a break in a minute.
I'll tell you what.
Not before we
Not
do
now.
this.
Not now.
We'll escape.
Or some lobbyists out there will attack us, right, Bob?
Yeah, sorry, I lost it. But-
That's right.
but,
That's what we kick it around.
yeah, well,
Kick the tires, see where we are.
yeah.
Left, that's all they're doing.
This is all good stuff.
All right, is there any more discussion on this? I'm going to call the question. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Surprise!
All right. Tom, let's finish your
Consistency is
report.
just to be admired.
Take a break.
I mean, that's
3 years.
Part of it, no, I voted for the
Two.
budget one year.
Yeah, I know, it was a zero increase.
We'll take a break as soon as Tom finishes.
Thank you.
Where are we? We through that?
Okay, the other, let me just I'm going to end up with my customer service initiative.
Okay.
But I want to tell you, the YMCA thing, we filed the notice of appeal. We are awaiting scheduling from the court, and the court will do that on their own good time, and I'll be happy to give you the answer to.
It'll probably be the end of the summer before we get a result on that. So we have appealed a decision.
All right, we spoke a lot about the snowstorms. I'm not going to spend much more time on this, but you ought to know that over these storms, we've had about 1,400 overtime hours. We've done 140 tons of salt on the roads and over 1,600 gallons of fuel used just for those. And that doesn't count the repairs to the equipment that is beaten badly when you're pushing that kind of snow for 24 hours on end.
That 42,800 can go to.
Yeah, there you go.
That's next year's budget.
Okay, Section 3 drainage, we've scheduled a public meeting to review proposed solutions and projected timelines affecting those residents in Section 3. The public meeting is slated for Saturday, March 6th. We've already talked about the second season food and beverage operation plan for next year, so I won't dwell on that. Finally, part of the board had asked us to put together a customer service initiative. In your packet, you'll see a an outline of the plan that we've adopted. I've established a group of employees to serve on my task force to develop this plan further. They include people from, they include Ruth Ann Meyer from my Membership Assessments Office, Sarah Ziccarelli from our Parks and Recreation, Teresa Travatello from Public Relations, Maria Hamby from our Yacht Club, and Harlan Goldman from our Golf Operations. They will be my task force team to help us to develop the customer service plan. Our campaign goals are: we want to heighten staff awareness of the importance of customer satisfaction. We want to make the public aware that we're trying to make customer service priority one, and that we're looking to achieve a measurable improvement in customer satisfaction across all service areas. Okay, our objectives are to obtain and sustain across-the-board buy-in and participation of the staff, promote staff ownership of encouraging active participation in strategy development and planning. I want them very much involved in it so that they are part of the solution, having directive based on that. We're going to be considering rewards and incentives for individual customer service. We're going to consider awards for customer service ideas. We'll be holding contests as well. We're going to publicly promote the campaign to solicit community interest and feedback. Things like banners at the amenities, name tags for all employees, uniforms for all employees, press releases to announce the campaign, and discuss it in detail in our spring newsletter. We're going to consider the application of professional consulting training, and I'm thinking of a three-phase training process for this. Number one, I need to train my supervisors on how to coach and manage customer service. Number two, I want my line staff to understand what their role is in customer service and how they can work to improve it. And the third process is a measurement and evaluation process, independent of not only using certain people in-house, but also on an independent basis to come in and evaluate it. Some of the areas we're going to tackle: greetings by telephone, empowering staff to immediately resolve problems, develop that I can responsibility approach, and we're going to reestablish all of our policies for effective customer service, including policies on the timelines for email replies, letter replies, telephone calls returned, and follow-up documentation to issues. We're going to develop and implement ways to measure the success of the campaign, and they'll include sales volume and usage statistics that will monitor it. We're going to be utilizing customer surveys and secret shoppers as well. Our timeline. We've already established the task force, and that started on February 1st. Between March 15th and April 1st, we're in the process right now of obtaining some proposals from customer service professionals to come in and do some training for us. We intend to implement our plan with hands-on training and evaluation of performance between May 15th and April 15th and May 1st. May 1st, we're officially kicking off the program, and we're going to be monitoring it between May 1st and Labor Day intensely to see how successful we are in doing it.
Yeah.
Comment?
I'd like to add one more thing to your list of which should be included there. It's one of the most least understood to the average person, but it's one of the most important things. Other departments are your customers. And actions toward other departments is just as important as actions toward outside people.
Excellent point. As a matter of fact, it's funny that you should say that. We just had our kickoff meeting the other day, and that was one of the first things that we realized as we were going through the brainstorming sessions. We were talking about how personnel at the yacht club have very little knowledge of what happens at the sports corp pool. And we're not getting an effective cross-marketing opportunity to get people talking. You know, someone will be dining that day and say, well, hey, do you know if there's anything going on? Geez, you know what, I really don't. Or, I think there's something happening over the golf course, but not well enough that you create that cross-marketing.
Anybody else? John?
I was the one that proposed the motion. I guess the bottom line, quite honestly, is the proof is in the pudding. And Les is absolutely right. You have both two types of customers, internal and external. And we got to approach them all with the same level of providing top-notch customer service. And we'll see from here.
You know, I applaud this, and John, I applaud you in making that particular motion, and the entire board embraced this as one of our key objectives at the beginning of the year. First meeting we ever had of the year on objective setting, we said customer service, and follow through is the most important thing. So I applaud it. I think we all need to be supportive of it and push it forward. Make it part of the culture.
Okay.
Quick question,
That was a long manager's report, but it's done.
real quick, bartender at the yacht club, do they have like free swimming at the indoor pool? Can the bartender on their day off go over and swim at the indoor pool?
Yeah.
All
Okay.
staff
Okay,
members.
Staff, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that's an important point. All staff, there's a fringe benefit associated with employment here, right?
Yeah.
That's great. I mean,
All
it's-
staff members can enjoy pool privileges.
They don't all get golf.
Golf's
They
different.
all get golf privileges, but
Different.
All the facilities, the pools.
it's all pools.
Okay, cool.
All right, any more discussion on this? All right, any more, Tom, on your report?
That's it.
All right, I'm gonna call a recess. I've got now 10:47. Can you do that at 10:55 and start?
Yes.
That's
I'm gonna
tough.
start at
Why don't we
10:55.
start at 10:55 regardless?
Yes, that's what we're gonna do.
That won't test in court. We don't have the right to blanket approve access on the lots. We think we do, but I stand by we don't.
I believe that it could be questioned in court. It's what we've been doing for the last several years, and it's worked adequately, and it's for things like grass that's growing 2 feet long and turns lanny and needs to be mowed, and that's all it really
Adequately
addresses.
covered in our DRs.
Okay. All right, any more discussion on that one? Then do I have a motion to approve that?
Also move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor of approving MO4 and canceling those that are indicated? Say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Opposed? One.
You never did a motion on the first one?
No,
It was first reading.
First reading.
First reading, sorry, go ahead.
All right, the next one is MO5 Animal Control Draft, 1-9-210, second reading, approval will cancel 2-85-14. Do I have a motion to approve that?
You said 14?
Yeah, earlier I said there was a pen change when I reviewed the
Yeah, okay.
agenda. Okay, do I have a motion to, yes, sir.
There's a typographical error in the purpose that where it says FO-306, that should be M-05.
I actually made that change. so
We have the
The
change.
changes are
I
correct.
made it.
That was noted the last meeting, but it will be.
We have the corrected one.
50%.
Okay.
But more importantly, and I know we haven't made a motion yet, but you've answered my question. I'm thinking, I read this last, and I'm thinking, animal control, and it cancels out the noise violation.
No,
Yeah, but
no.
what is the one that's being canceled then? It's 14, obviously, not 13.
Yes.
But what does 14 say?
Attached here, I believe.
Well, they attached the wrong one.
Oh, the cat's the wrong one because it was a
Precisely.
typo.
I'm looking at this last night, and I'm thinking, okay, well, why does noise violation have anything to do with animal control?
Because they bark.
Well, that's what I thought, John, but then I read further.
He did his homework.
But seriously, there must be an attendant now, 28514, which also speaks to animal control. Is that correct?
That's correct. It has some definitions in it. It also talks about dogs being registered, collars, tags required, should not be able to run at large off the phone.
Can you summarize for me why this is being done to replace that? Is this
Rather than,
more restrictive, less restrictive, fewer words? What is the essence of the need for the rescission of the old?
original recommendation to both Tom and Chief Massey was to cancel this because of the county code requirements regarding animal control.
Okay,
Tom and the chief pointed out that there can be occasions in which a dog is taken under control by the police department and maintained here until otherwise
Okay.
disposition, either to the county or an owner claims it. And when it's claimed, we charge for maintaining it.
So my summary of what I think you're saying and the reason we're doing this is the old 285-14 is no longer necessary because it's been replaced by county ordinances. However, we in Ocean Pines need to at least address this aspect of that when we have to take custody and provide a maintenance. Thank you, that's all I need to
Okay,
know.
John, you support this as written, right? Okay,
I
do
just
I have a
need to
motion,
know.
do I have a motion to pass?
I'll move the adoption of it and the rescission of the previous 285-14.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Marty, you in favor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let the record show.
All right. Now, and also we have
Barking dogs.
a motion to, or the second reading for canceling the noise violation one and the parking of abandoned vehicles one. Those are both second readings with no replacement. Do I have a motion to approve those? The cancellation of those?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion?
Yeah, and the motivation here is,
Want me to comment?
Go ahead.
All right, noise violations, that's really the disturbing the peace kind of thing. Controlled by appropriate law. And the parking in abandoned vehicles to
and that's really, I'm sorry, my question is directed to the 285-15 cancellation.
It's really meaningless.
That's covered already in DRs
And the guidelines, even.
Guidelines.
And the guidelines, okay,
Yes.
yeah. We no longer need it because it's covered by DRs and guidelines. Because we just made the modification recently to the guidelines to deal with the vehicle registration. Yeah, fine.
Okay, any more discussion on those two? All right, then all in favor of canceling those two? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, good. All right, pending action list.
Resolutions reviewed. Dave, that one's, your name's still next to that.
We just did it.
We're moving on.
Jim?
Moving along.
Latest version.
Pace.
Delinquent assessments. Pete?
The committee will be formed, has been formed, and it will be meeting in the next couple of weeks to review, as provided by that particular resolution FO for each and every delinquent account and come out with a recommendation.
Okay, amenity task force. It's going to be covered in 10-year.
No, but we're working on a draft, remember? That should be done by May.
May 20,
Yeah.
May 2000, yeah.
I'm working on it with John McLaughlin.
Golf Advisory Committee,
We'll
and
talk
I
about it in a
think
little
we
while.
can postpone that, right? Active Election Committee report, need to revise admin resolution. You know what, I've met with the nomination committee, and the chair.
Election committee.
Nominations committee.
Nomination
Search committee.
comes, okay, search committees who I've met with,
Okay,
which precedes this a little bit.
all right.
Comprehensive plan,
Yeah, there's been no action. There was another cancellation of a meeting. I'll speak to Art Sachs tomorrow about that.
All right.
okay. Budget we just took care of. The next few items are GM. I think we covered all of those, did we not, Tom?
We did.
In the general manager's report today, it mentioned the 10-year. Task force 10-year. Are we going to do that today, or are we going to put that off now and let it just happen on?
I kind of ran over the highlights of I did the highlights of the thing in my manager's report.
Yeah, but we didn't go through this report.
No, I don't.
Okay, fine, that's good. I didn't want to do it twice.
The purpose of that is we want to make sure that everybody on the board understands the direction and of where the task force is going and the kind of information that we're going to present to the membership, so that a board member doesn't say, wait a minute, that's not, well, I didn't understand that, you know?
Well, I want you to understand that I intend to object to a whole lot of that
Well, I know
at that meeting.
I know that, but I want you to
Loud
make
and
sure.
clear.
But I want you to make sure that you know what's in there and you're not surprised. That's the reason why.
No, I'm not going to be at all surprised.
Okay.
Okay.
11.
On the Verizon poll, have we come to a conclusion on that?
Excuse me?
The Verizon,
At the Verizon.
He's on number 14.
Poll site request number 14?
Yeah, Tom talked about it at the last meeting.
Yeah.
I followed up with the folks, I think they're looking at some new technology that would eliminate the need for those, so they're not pursuing that any further at this point.
Okay, can we just scratch it?
You can, or just put it on that, delete it from previous stuff.
Now, on the number 11 there, the Ocean Pines Varndale Fire Department agreement and pending plan, you're working on that.
Correct.
And
We're working on
got some
that.
help on that from some other people, right?
Tom Terry,
Yeah.
Dennis Hudson.
Okay. Customer service plan we covered.
Tim Bernie's not part of that?
No.
Okay, go ahead. Well, we're getting all through, these things are all being done.
Yeah, that's what I'm reading through them. We've covered most of these in our report. Revised, comprehensive.
The commissioner meeting,
Tonight,
Should we take a raise of hands, who's gonna make that? Because I'm not gonna be able to make it.
What time is it?
6:00.
John, you coming?
I gotta check, I gotta check my schedule, because I didn't have it on my radar screen. So I gotta see if I can.
I did, but I can't.
okay.
Volunteer Appreciation Night, that's tomorrow night, just as a reminder for everybody. That's been on the calendar,
What's the time on that? It's at the yacht club?
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
5 to 7.
Maybe a similar show of hands. Everybody gonna be there?
I'll stop in, but I'm not gonna hang around.
Okay, I think everything, we've got everything
Yeah,
on track.
looks like it, Bill.
Thank you. All right, okay. Do you want to address, Dave, this reestablishing the Gulf Task Force now, or after we talk about the other motions?
Well, I'll address it now, and then, because they're related,
They are.
and then we'll see what everybody thinks, relative to the other motions. Okay, I'll state the motion. I move that the board authorize the reestablishment of the Gulf Task Force for the purpose of reviewing and evaluating the actions that resulted from the previous task force recommendations and determining whether further initiatives are required. I envision this.
Oh, wait a minute. That's your motion?
That's my motion.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Discussion.
Okay, the last Gulf Task Force, which was co-chaired by Marty and I, was authorized back in December of 2008. We had a number of meetings, and I believe it was Marty's recommendation, and the Gulf Task Force approved it, was to bring Gulf Profit Builders back in for a second, sort of a revisit, after they had initiated their original report. They submitted a second report, and we subsequently had them in to discuss it in detail. There were a number of other Gulf Task Force recommendations that were made and implemented. And one of both the Gulf Profit Builders and Gulf Task Force recommendations to the board was that we hire a director of golf marketing. This is a part-time position. We identified the person and subsequently hired her. In looking at the types of things that I envision the task force following up on, one of them is to get a report back from the golf marketing person to find out where she is, what she's at, but, she's had enough time in place. She wasn't hired all that long ago, but certainly enough time to be able to give us a preliminary report on what she's doing and what she thinks. The second thing is related to Marty's three motions. Without getting into all of the details, let's say that early on we had recommended pretty much, I think, what Marty's got in his motion, that tee-off times be set aside for, I think we called it outside play, but our intention was high-end play, the people who are coming in and paying. This is distinguished from package play, for which other times are available and which is being aggressively marketed. and with arrangements that, like in the past we've had with Pam's Golf and other places. I think it's fair to say that the tee-off times that we were looking for, the additional times to be set aside, were for people, non-packaged people, the people who on the beach, who were coming in, paying the premium fee for playing golf. That was not implemented in the way that we had intended. We discovered that somewhat late in the year. We went back in and said, look, this is, either the staff hasn't got the word or you haven't got the word, but we need to redo this and get back to what we wanted. Right now, the situation is that tee-off times of at least 1 per hour which is what Marty is, are going to be set aside up to a certain point for people who just want to call up and come in. We also said that if those times are released because they haven't been used up to that point, and somebody calls up, even of that day, that the staff would be instructed to basically say, yes, come on in and play.
Dan, could I interrupt for a minute? Let's put this then back behind. You're talking about the things that are related to Marty's motion, not the motion itself.
I'm sorry. Let me say that, this is the background. There's numbers of suggestions that need to be followed up on. So in other words, if you take Marty's first motion, I believe that is being implemented now. But am I going to sign my name in blood and say that's true? No, because I think the Golf Task Force should go back, sit down, go through it with Harlan again, and make sure that it in fact is implemented for the following season.
Okay, well, what you're saying is, you're saying reform a Golf Task Force.
Yes.
Okay, well, why don't we reform the Golf Advisory Committee?
Okay.
And have it do the work of the task force, and it'd be more, and that's what they're supposed to do.
Well, as a matter of fact, they're two different things. And I've talked to Bob about this. The Golf Advisory Committee was originally implemented. We revised the long existing Golf Advisory Committee resolution to expand it to include specifically non-members, non-Ocean Pines golf members, but members of the OPA who play golf. And so we expanded the size of the committee and so forth. That clearly did not work. Okay. Clearly. Okay. And because basically the Board of Golfing Governors, even though we split and made them two separate groups, two different resolutions, two different terms of reference. The problem of having two separate meetings when
headed by the same person.
Headed by the same person.
For the same people. Didn't make sense.
Didn't work. Okay, it was the least painful way of doing it at the time, but it still didn't work. Okay, if you're going to do the Golf Advisory Committee, what's required is somebody has to rework that resolution, make it separate from you may still have a member of the Board of Golf Governors on it, but they'll be appointed as other committees would be appointed, and it would not be restrictive in terms of who could serve on the committee. That's the Golf Advisory Committee.
Last night, in preparation for this, what I did is I pulled out the Golf Advisory Committee resolution, and I read it through, and all the tasking stuff, which you wrote, I think, is really good. And what I've done is, I've taken and said, well, if we're going to have a task force, I just, if you look down here in the paragraph 3, membership, I just said the committee should have at least 7 members, and then terms of service shall be as resolution and resolution C-01 insofar as possible. And we can make, instead of appointing a golf task force, we could reappoint the advisory committee and let them do the same thing. Well, rather than creating a new thing, let's just do what we really want to get done.
First, I think that's the long-term solution, yes. But if we're going to redo this resolution, we're going to have to do it in the same way that we did everything else. You say no?
No.
I don't think so. I
I say
think
we
we
can
do.
approve it in principle
What does
right
that-
now,
what
but
does that mean, Dave?
go through the long
Well, I mean,
process of 2 readings, we can get it done.
I mean, we have to modify the resolution,
do.
pass it through bylaws.
Right.
And then have a first reading, and then have a second
We're the
reading.
board of
and then-
directors, we can
and then,
make
then,
an exception.
and then approve it. The second reason is that the Golf Task Force is in fact part of the Golf Task Force, and members of it are Sean and Harlan. I mean, in other words, it's not different than other task forces. Well, it's not different than the 10-year planning task force, in that we have both staff and members working on short-term things to get it done. Now, there's nothing wrong with, for example, and by the way, I think those short-term things should be done as soon as possible. Now,
What's your?
you have a very,
Like what?
well, looking at the coming season, okay, taking Marty's suggestions, for example, and
Marty's
each one of them-
motions.
Marty's motions.
Word suggestions.
Marty's motions, okay, determining for a fact that motion number 1, which regards the tee-off time, is being implemented. I mean, and
So
will
that's
continue
part of
to
what
be
the
implemented.
task force would
That's
do?
what the task force would do. Second-
Monitor management.
Not monitor management, make
Right.
sure that, in fact.
Okay, not monitor, but make sure, okay.
Make sure that the management procedures are following what was agreed upon by management and the task force last year.
Who do you propose to man this task force?
I would reconstitute it with the same people we have, plus anybody that wants to be added to it. Anybody. Same way we did the last time.
At the appropriate time, I'd like to weigh in here, but I'll
Go ahead.
let you finish.
Anybody else have any more comments?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Only because my motions seem to have gone over to that motion.
Well, that's why I was kind of wondering we should have gone the other way, but I didn't want to.
And I got another, the more the merrier. But I think if we have a good golf advisory committee, we got all we need. Task force is fine, but I just want to read, this is not my words, this is from Dave, defending the task force concept. The 3,500 rounds outside of well within addressed by the golf task force. There was some question about the outside play. I believe it's already being implemented. Marty has good reason to be skeptical. If correctly implemented, he'd support it. Let's keep going. Younger golfer. This was also discussed briefly. Here's the key. With no action taken.
That's true.
Down here, early bird play was also discussed in the last with the golf task force with no real resolution.
That's
What
true.
needs to be done before next season. None of this stuff will ever get done if we keep forming committees.
Well,
The patient is bleeding to death. I don't want to wait for the
The-
Mayo Clinic's opinion.
it's,
All right. Pete?
yeah.
First of all, I applaud efforts to try and change the operation results of the Bob, you, and Marty, you. I applaud that. We'll get to that later. However, with respect to this particular proposal, I really don't see the need for recreating the task force. The task force operated over a 9-month period. We've got the information here in Dave's resolution as to what its purpose was. Eliminate the operational deficit suffered by our golf operations. The task force is to explore and recommend specific actions beyond those already being taken to reach those goals by generating revenues through increased play and sales. It met for over a 9-month period. It rendered recommendations. It went out of business. Now, we see these deficits, and Marty, you've taken the initiative. Bob, you've taken the initiative. I applaud that. And as a result of that, we want to recreate the task force again? Doesn't seem to make sense to me. What I would rather do, and the people I've talked to are very, very supportive of the Golf Advisory Committee, which by everyone's acknowledgement, and Dave spoke to it a minute ago, didn't work the way it was intended. So I'd like to focus on that as a long-term as well as a short-term solution and forget about recreating the same task force that met over a 9-month period. It did its job, and that's fine. And out of that process did not come specific recommendations, for example, to explore outsourcing it, hiring a management company, Maybe it should have. I don't know why it didn't. I wasn't part of it.
Well, because
Because we never saw the letter.
It wasn't
Well-
within the scope of the committee. Of course,
Well, the co-chair saw
we
it.
had the recommendation. I mean, we had our specific
see
recommendation
that-
from golf profit builders, which we addressed, which we talked about, and which we decided is not within the scope of the committee. And there are some pretty obvious reasons why it shouldn't have been.
But if we have the Golf Advisory Committee, its functions do include things like that.
So let me just finish up.
That's right.
So
It does.
I see the solution, both short-term and long-term, being not recreating the golf task force. Once again, it's out of business, and that's fine, did its job. Let's turn it over to a new group and have that group go forward like other amenities have advisory committees. Now, I also was on the computer last night, and I've crafted up an alternative motion to Dave's, a substitute motion, if it will, and it dovetails
So
with
we
what Bill
either
here
got
did.
a vote on Dave's and vote it down, or we
Well,
can make
what I'm-
recommend an amendment.
Oh, okay. It can be either way. My concept is, and it's, again, short-term and long-term, let's get that daggone golf advisory committee in existence, okay? Bill's language here, he did the same thing I did. I deleted that stuff about the president of the bog should be this, and if she's, let's just start fresh. And with no preconceived, yes, obviously, golf. So we have a process in place. The board has approved resolutions on how we create committees, how we staff committees. It requires board approval, submission by the president. Let's apply all of that to the Golf Advisory Committee. And so I've got here a motion as an alternative, if the board agrees with me that we ought not to recreate the task force, to in effect do the first reading if that's required, or if we can do it more expeditiously than that, to simply implement what we've already got as a resolution to the golf course. It's simply, it deletes a couple.
Let me do this.
I got it right here.
Let me say, to clean this up, instead of doing motions and amendments and stuff, let me call the question on Dave's motion.
Okay.
Well, does anybody else have any motion?
Okay. We're going to call the question
Wait a
on
minute.
Dave's motion. Should we?
I got a question before you
Discussion's not
call it.
finished.
Let's have the full
I
discussion.
need
Yeah,
to
sure,
understand
sure.
something.
He didn't make a motion.
Yeah, he did.
Dave
Yes,
certainly
he
did. I seconded
And
it.
he
So,
seconded.
Do you want to?
for the discussion purposes, my question, I spoke to Dave about this, obviously when we got the email about it. And my question was, I agree, as I think everyone knows, that we need to do a golf advisory committee.
Yeah.
Completely agree with that. I went back and did more homework. I've got something I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. But my only question with Dave's motion, my understanding was he was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was positioning that because we could not change a resolution without first reading, second reading, and approval
We can do it.
from a timing standpoint. If we can accelerate that process, that changes how, I think Dave, I don't want to speak for Dave, but I think his goals are similar to what everyone else's are.
And- Okay, let
Am I
me
wrong?
respond to that if you will.
Well, I think for the
Let me-
long
let me
term, I
respond
think
to
that's
that,
true,
Frank.
not for the short term.
We cannot let a bureaucratic resolution we passed
That's fine.
hold us up from doing something. It just doesn't make sense. That's ridiculous. What we can do is, we can say, we're going to do this, and we're going to ask them, before, to go through the motions to get it done, the process to get it done, I mean, but we can say, we're going to do this right now.
Dave, what in your mind, without all the background reasons and stuff, but what in your mind is the actual differences between the task force and the advisory committee?
Well, the task force basically is looking at specific short-term solutions to improving the golf situation, the golf operation. The task force is constituted by members of staff, just as the 10-year planning task force is. The task force and of course I just took two of the highlights, but actually there were a number of resolutions or changes that were made last year, including the hiring of Tony, including the tee-off times that were implemented, and others that it's questioned how much they were implemented. But the task force can basically address narrowly those things and do it in a time frame, because they have the past experience, that it's going to make a difference this coming golf season. Now, you can say all you want that we can get a whole new group of people and put them on a golf advisory committee, and that they're going to, with a much broader scope, and that they're going to do that too. And I just don't think they will. I don't think they will. You can do both, is my argument. They are not incompatible. Maybe some of the task force group might migrate to the Golf Advisory Committee. You can do both.
You see the task force doing more quicker.
I see them doing follow-up work that they're very well familiar with and working with the staff to see that that's implemented, including the resolution, well, all of the motions that Marty has on the table. They become agenda items.
If I may, if
Yeah.
you want to see quick, vote yes to my motion. That's quick. And it's not all that quick because both of the first two motions have been in the golf business plan since '06 and have yet to be implemented. The reason I'm making a direct motion to these is that when they don't get done, somebody's head goes out the door.
Well,
Now, we can form a committee to discuss it further, to do it quicker, to do it better.
Marty, your motions are separate from this.
He's saying that my
I know what
motion.
he's saying. He's going to vote against your
yes,
motions. Marty.
That's okay.
And I
Okay.
support all of what Marty says.
You know, if it
But-
turns out to be 6-1,
But the devil is in the details. So if you look at, for example, the starting at 7 a.m., I mean, the issue that comes up is people, a lot of people who live by a golf course and are going to hear at 5 a.m. mowers going by their front yard, and who will guarantee protest against that. So how do you figure, I'm not saying you can't work that out, but you gotta have to work it out in some satisfactory manner.
that pesky trash truck
The
woke me up
same
at
thing with the
6:30 the other day.
37-year-old youth movement, or whatever you want to call it. A good idea, but is that necessarily the best way to do it? Is to simply say, look, we're going to have a motion that says we're going to have a special price category. What is that price category going to consist of? And it's going to be cheaper, okay? What does that do? In terms of other members who aren't getting the same break, and what's their attitude towards it?
These
These are questions.
We're discussing my motions.
You know what we're doing here? We're doing management.
We're doing management.
We're doing
We're
management.
the job of management.
We don't
Well,
need a
it has
task
to be
force to
done.
manage.
Well, you don't need motions to manage
Well,
either.
if we do, if the initiative is not there, this gives him the order
As a
to
matter,
start
as a
doing it.
matter of fact, task forces are exactly how we do management. If you don't
Well, then let's
do that,
create one for the yacht club.
we already did. We already did.
Okay.
And it met for
I
I know
a
you have,
year.
you have a strong view on
And
this.
it met
Yes,
for
I
a
know.
year.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I know Dave has a strong view on this. Obviously, he's passionate about it. He co-chaired the 9-month effort. Okay, I understand that. But we are where we are today. We don't need a task force to, I'm supportive of what Marty's proposing. I'm supportive of what Bob's doing, okay? We don't need a task force to muddle through that and okay? We need to jumpstart some things, and I'm prepared to do that. We can do that at a board level. We don't need a task force, okay? What we do need is an ongoing oversight of golf, okay? And and I think we all agree on the golf task force. To have the redundancy of a task force that already spent 9 months and now wants to get back together again makes no sense in my judgment, all right? So, I don't think we ought to have it. I think we ought to focus our attention on getting the composition of that Golf Advisory Committee to what it could be to serve well this board. It is advisory to the board. It's appointed by the board, accountable to the board, and I think we ought to make that happen just as quickly as we can and forget about the task force.
And I can say that if we make it as quickly as we can, when they address something that involves management's going to be brought in. Harlan, and those guys will be brought in, just like the task force
You know,
would.
exactly.
So
They
if there
are-
were discussion on his motion,
No.
I'm going to call the question. All in favor of his motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm neutral.
So we have, so the motion fails. Do we have an alternate motion?
What was the
Yeah.
count?
It looks like it was 4-2.
You abstained?
I abstain.
Bob?
And there were 2?
I abstained because I'm waiting to see this.
Okay.
We need something.
We
and I
need
don't-
something.
That motion's dead. Now we have an alternate motion you'd like to
What
present?
was the count on the last vote?
2 for, 3 against, and 2
Abstain.
abstain.
Okay,
2 for, 3 against.
it adds up.
Yeah.
Pot's
Okay.
right.
Now, Pete, would you like to, what we're doing here, instead of amending the motion, we're going to put an alternate motion.
Exactly.
Have you got that for us?
I do.
Okay. Can I ask a question before he puts his alternate motion out there?
Yes.
With golf, which tends to be probably one of the most emotional issues that we ever bring up here. We've got a board of governors that is elected internally, am I correct, by members of the club?
Correct.
That's right.
It's elected to and accountable to the,
Only to them, it's not accountable to us.
To the
That's
owners.
true.
that's true.
The task force normally has one or two board members sitting on it.
Wait a minute, the Golf Advisory Committee, you mean?
Golf
No,
advisory
his task force, he wanted to,
Or any task force that we put
it had
on.
these two as
Whoever you wanna put on
co-chairs.
it.
Right, but normally we have,
We don't have any normal.
There is no normal.
well, in the past, my experience has been we've had board members sit on our task force.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Advisory committees, as I understand it, are made up of the community without
The membership.
the membership, without a board member sitting on it, but acting as a liaison.
Liaison.
That's
Correct
right.
them and
Correct.
go.
I just, okay.
Yes.
That's true. Just want to add one thing
They're
again.
advisory to the board.
You know, historically, you only have to go back, if you go back 2 years, what you said is correct when we revised it. Historically, in fact, we've had a single golf advisory committee. I don't know, we'll call it a resolution or whatever. It's an old resolution.
No resolution, we had it.
And that basically said that, in fact, the BOG, and which reported to the board, by the way, and which was headed by and constituted by the BOG. That's what it said. That's what it was. So, in fact, the BOG, even though it's elected to the members, historically in the past, had a report to the board too, as the Golf Advisory Committee.
But
They were
the-
the same. They were the same thing.
Yeah, but the delta would be that as we are beginning to discuss this, an advisory committee would.
As we're, yeah.
Would open it up to members who are not, would open up to members of the
It would-
association,
it would-
not
All right,
just.
well, this would be in the discussion,
That's the
but
whole intent.
basically,
Yes,
John, the way we would do this is we would ask every board member to nominate somebody to be on the committee. So if you want to nominate somebody that's already on the BOG, that'd be your privilege, okay? But this way, we nominate them, they're appointed by me with your consent, and they work for us.
No, I just wanted to
Now,
make that
he-
clarification.
Bill- yeah.
Because we did not discuss the deltas between the potentially three different boards that we may have had. And I think it's important that as we go down this road, we're taking power away from the BOG if we appoint an advisory committee, which is not necessarily bad.
It's just, the BOG, as I see it, and I hope we don't get any hurting feelings
Yeah.
here, is like the Ocean Pines Tennis Club. They're responsible for golf membership functions and goodwill and events,
Their own
correct me if I'm
charity
wrong,
events, good charity
and those kind of things.
I'm in agreement with you.
Okay.
I see it as the yacht club, the boat club, okay? I see it similar as the boat club.
Boat Club and the Marine
Right.
Activity Advisory Committee, right.
Okay.
Bill, may I? There is a misconception, I think, misperception in the community as to the BOG's role in golf at the present time. I think historically it was different than it is today. Les is the liaison to that committee. I attend from time to time meetings, but it's pretty clear to me that the BOG is not setting the rates and dealing with the policy issues. And in fact, I think it feels like the authority maybe used to reside there, but no longer does. So there's a vacuum in a sense, in my opinion. And maybe Jim, I think, indicated like maybe he wanted to say something, but I think what the concept here, John, is exactly treat it like other committees, budget and finance,
I don't disagree.
aquatics, and board representation through the liaison person. Bill may end up, as we're talking about populating that particular committee, we all may submit 12 different recommendations. He's got to sort through them as president, submit to us. He may submit to us 7 names, and we say, no to that one, my God. And we can do that as a board. We will be the ones who decide who sit on that board. It rests in the hands of the president to come to us with his recommendation, as we have for every other committee. That's the way I see it, and I see it happening very quickly.
All right.
I'm sorry, did you want to
I do, but
suspend the
let's
rules
go
for a
ahead and make
minute
the
or not?
motion.
Okay.
Get it on the table, and then
Okay.
I'll open it for more discussion, okay?
Okay. I-
Part of the rules, though, I think,
I will.
You want it on the,
I want it-
let's
I
get it
want
on
the
then.
motion
Okay,
done.
okay, fine. And this is an alternative to the motion to reestablish, so, and it is an amendment of Resolution C11 Golf Advisory Committee previously passed by the board. So the motion is, I move the paragraph 3 membership of Resolution C11 be amended to delete sentences 2 and 3 which required that A, the committee chairperson be the president of the Board of Golf Governors, BOG, and B, that 3 additional members of the committee shall be appointed as members of the committee, and that the remaining members shall be appointed from volunteer members of the larger association golfing community. The background is very clear.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion.
I don't see that as a motion at all. That is
It's an amendment
it's an
of,
amendment to a resolution.
Well,
Yes.
then we can.
that's why it
staff
says,
it.
that's why it says amendment of resolution.
Then we can staff it.
Oh. I don't have it. You wrote it last night. I mean, if we don't have it, Pete, we don't have it.
I don't have Bob's yet either.
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm going to listen to it.
Well,
Here's one.
oh, you have one?
I just passed them out.
All we're doing is saying, let's get on with the implementation of the
Right.
previously passed resolution, but let's modify it so that we define, we're just modifying 2 sentences, we're eliminating 2 sentences that mandated that the president shall be the president of. It hasn't worked. By Dave's own admission, it hasn't worked. Let's get it working.
What exactly are you creating by it?
An advisory committee, as was
It's
originally
already
intended.
created.
It's created.
All you're doing is changing the staffing
I
of
think
it.
it does,
Well,
Les.
it's not, okay, I'm going to depart from the rules
Okay,
and recognize Jim Beiser.
please.
Thank you. This whole Golf Advisory Committee thing got off to a bad start a couple of years ago. And what we ultimately did was take the mandate of the Board of Golf Governors and chop out those things that we felt, or we collectively felt, including Dave and others, belong to the reconstituted Golf Advisory Committee. So there's a list of things there on that, that says this is what the Golf Advisory Committee will be responsible for, and this is what the Board of Golf Governors will be responsible for. I believe every one of those items says at the direction of the Board of Directors. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay. The staffing issue was a tender issue and may still be. I don't know. I personally don't care. I think this is a good idea going this direction. But the Board of Golf Governors' role, as you point out, is a hell of a lot different than people perceive it to be.
Right.
We're basically there to support the membership and support the golf club in its success. That's what we do. We try and direct our attentions to making that a good thing. Okay. In the past, perhaps there was more power wielded there. I don't know. I wasn't part of it at that time. There was certainly more influence at that time. But I think this direction is a good one to go into. But keeping in mind that, first of all, we had a staffing problem. We couldn't get people to stay. They just didn't stay. They didn't do anything, or maybe it was our fault. Maybe we didn't give them enough to do. But again, those items say at the direction of the Board of Directors, and the Board of Directors directed us to do nothing. Okay? The only thing that we did was the membership plan 2 years ago that Tom and his group have pretty much used. At least they used a good part of it to sell to the members. Okay, so our membership plan that's in existence now was in essence a product of a Golf Advisory Committee effort. At that time, there were 3 or 4 or 5 members on this thing. Bob Custer was one, Bill Hickey, and Frank Fay, and a couple other people. So we had 5 people basically who put that thing together. And it worked out very well. But that was the only thing that the Golf Advisory Committee's done in my tenure. And I think this direction makes a lot of sense.
Thank you.
I think the staffing issue now has become less a problem, less an issue.
Yeah. Does anybody got anything else they want to say about this? I want to say that if this is passed, I will ask each of you to quickly, as a matter of fact, if we pass Dave's motion, I would ask you all quickly to recommend people for the Golf Task Force. Now I would ask you to recommend people quickly for the Golf Advisory Committee, okay?
To quote an old colonel I knew once, can you define quickly and give us a date?
Yeah, very quickly.
Give me a date.
Within 2 weeks.
That's a date.
Within 2 weeks.
That's a date. Quickly's not a date.
Well, you pick up, I would like to say,
All right, next 2 weeks.
I would like to say that at the next board meeting, we can appoint.
Let's approve it.
Perfect.
Now, I'm not at all concerned about the process at all. And
You mean first reading,
I
second
know
reading?
that
It's an amendment.
it's an amendment, okay?
Striking 2 sentences.
But I'm worried about we have to go through the process to make sure it's signed right in accordance with the
We can do
resolution we
that.
passed.
We
But
can
that
do
doesn't
that.
mean we can't affect something right now.
That's
We can't.
formality.
Is there any qualification? They don't have to be a golfing member.
Here's what I recommend. I recommend a change to Dave's. It's amazing. 'cause
Dave's or Pete's?
Pete's.
Thank you. Not
motion.
Dave.
I recommend that he change it to read. that the committee should have at least 7 members.
Okay.
Which gives us the option, if you guys come up with more, we could do more. Okay?
I am very amenable to making that modification by
Can you
way
put
of
a
amendment.
range in there?
Range?
Not to
At
exceed.
least 7 and not more than 10.
Yes.
I think
You know,
9
I
is
think budget and finance has at least 7 and no more than 9.
9.
That's
Yeah.
it.
No
You want to do that
more
language?
Yes.
Than,
At least 7 and no
9,
more
okay.
than 9.
All right.
Yeah.
At least 7
Okay.
and not more than 9.
and
Odd
all
number.
other provisions of, this is not part of the motion, but this is a very good thing that was drafted up a couple of years ago. It really-
Yeah, just never-
This gives I gave you all a copy, this gives you all, anything we or they want to do, they can tackle on their own, or we can ask them to do it.
Yeah, if
Okay?
we have a project, we can say, hey, you know,
Call the question, you gotta reread the motion.
The motion is,
I just like to hear him say it, because he's gonna be an auctioneer
Okay.
if he can get all that out in one breath.
you want me to say it?
Wow.
I know, it's okay, I've got it right here.
No,
I think we got it.
We got it, we got it.
Everybody
Okay,
does.
I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye,
Any opposed? Okay, good.
thank you.
Now let's move on. CPI, ARC violations.
We have more golf on the next
Well, we're
page.
gonna get this, we're gonna take a break from golf. It's gonna be good for our minds.
Let's talk about aquatic.
A wedge shot away from the next one.
Who's gonna address these?
Manager,
I'll be happy to, our recommendation is that the board, both of these to council for legal action. There's an unregistered vehicle as well as a box trailer that's contained on this property. This has been a problem property for quite some time. It has been before you on many different occasions for either unsightly conditions and/or abandoned personal property like this. And we're recommending that you go ahead and authorize us to.
The address is
It is at 16.
Footbridge Trail, right?
You've personally been here, Pete. This-
I know.
One of them is for a box
Yeah,
trailer,
yeah.
and one of them is for unregistered junk vehicle.
Mr. President, I'm gonna recuse myself
No, wait,
because the man's worked for me.
remember now, we modified the unregistered, that's no longer a violation, but it is a junk vehicle.
Junk vehicle.
Yeah.
It's it's junk.
We're not
and a-
citing them,
No.
we ought not to be citing something we've already
Right.
decided to
Junk
do away
vehicle.
with,
Can we
okay?
change that?
Absolutely.
All right, and this is also a person who owes assessments, but that's the, Mr. Treasurer, this is also a person who owes assessments, but you can look at that.
Yes, yes.
All right, then, do we have a motion to approve these recommendations by the general manager?
I would make that motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? One
Recused,
abstained.
abstained.
Okay. I lost my.
What time's lunch?
Yeah.
You took it.
What do you need, agenda?
I lost my.
Next one's
New business.
new business.
Okay, Marty.
Okay, I move that the Board of Directors direct our general manager to make available, as promised in the 2008 Golf Business Plan, a block of prime morning tee times for retail sales only. This block of prime morning tee times should be a minimum of 3,500 rounds and should not be sold for less than $60 a round plus the cost of a cart.
I have a second?
We doing them all at once or just one?
No,
No, one at a time,
One at a
one at a time, please.
I'll second for
Okay,
discussion.
second. All right, discussion.
I'd like to add that when I did this, our deficiency this year was based on last month at $201,400. And according to today's meeting, we're up to $239. So we've had a 19% increase in the bottom line negative in a month.
Yeah, I guess I have a couple of questions. Number one, I like what you have here. However, I'm not sure if it goes far enough. When you say a block of prime morning tee time should be made available, is there going to be a drop dead date where if they're not taken?
If the check doesn't clear, they grow grass.
I'd like to understand the question, I
Okay.
haven't heard the question yet.
I'm sorry.
You talk about a block of prime morning tee times. what happens, and that's open to the public, everybody?
Everybody, you, me, golf members,
Everybody willing to pay that
everybody willing to
price.
pay $60 in a cart.
Okay.
And that's an important question.
It is, and I got the same kind of question.
If they are not taken by, say, within 24 hours of the game,
Right?
then they go back to where our members can come in?
Nope. It's not what the motion
Well,
says.
Okay.
That's what I didn't
That's a
understand.
That's
key.
not what the
Oh,
motion
no,
says.
I understand that.
It would grow grass, much like our Tuesday mornings do.
Well, again, I'm not a golfer. I can understand. I'm just concerned about that portion of it. I'm not quite sure how to articulate that. That's why the advisory committee might be very helpful in this
I
case.
think it's very important that we understand that if our golf pro and golf shop can't sell morning AM tee times in July and August and September for $60, that we need a new person selling golf times.
I'm not.
So we put in the firing provision in here? or-
No, I think that it's about time.
Okay.
I'm
I
sorry.
guess my thing
And
is,
by the way, the golf pro supports this.
I'm not saying he does.
Well, you speak, that's hearsay.
No, it's not hearsay. You want to see his memo?
I've got his memo. It's a little more nuanced than that particular statement, but
Actually, the only negative I've gotten was on the next one.
Well,
And the other question is, if I make a reservation and I'm unable to play, do I get 24-hour cancellation? If I fail to cancel, do I have to pay regardless? I mean, there has to be some teeth in this.
well, you know, you.
First off,
you don't need to get into that.
Every single
Well, no,
person
I
that
think
books a
you do is
retail,
you're putting it on the plate,
if a
Pete.
person books a retail time
That's a management.
today at our pro shop, it's over a credit card.
Okay.
Now, I don't know what our cancellation policy is, and I don't care.
Marty,
As long-
you know, I'm just curious about the implementation. So we block these out how far in advance? All summer?
Yeah, you can.
So if I call up today and I want to
$3,500.
reserve, if I call up today and I want to reserve a time in July, can I?
Sure, as long as you give me credit card.
That's what your intent is, huh?
Absolutely.
That makes it easier to work if you can, you know, you can call anytime you want and fill those up.
Anytime you got a credit card, Visa number, what?
However, I am likely to do that, and then come July, I may have a change, and now I don't show up.
See what Expedia
That's
does.
a whole different question.
See what American
That's a whole
Airlines
different
does.
question.
Let me.
You lose.
See, Marty, I support the principle of what you're doing. I just don't see how it's going to be implemented. But I mean,
my key.
If we say
Just like
right
everybody
now
else.
you can't get a tea time except for 7 days in advance, is that correct?
Thank you.
Is
Well,
that right?
yeah, Bill, whoa,
If
whoa,
you're an
whoa.
outsider, you can't
Please
get one at all.
understand, please understand one thing, and Dave referred to it earlier. Last year, it was recommended, and they thought the recommendation was being implemented, to assign one foursome in each hour of prime morning time. That was the intent, that was the direction. So if you had a 4.5 hour block of time in the morning, there was supposed to be one opening for that outside play that we're talking about. Not package play, but that outside party, right?
Clarion calling up for-
Right.
Yeah.
That did not happen the way it was supposed to have. It got corrected late in the season.
I think in the way that it was implemented, I believe that Harlan believed he was following the direction, but I don't think it was
Right.
really the intent. He didn't.
But
But that's why
But-
ironing out details is pretty important. I see
management is pretty important, there's no question about it.
No, understanding that policy, okay, is being implemented by management is pretty important. Of course.
Okay, well,
I
have a
gotta
question.
believe that this is pretty clear to
Well,
any
no, well,
six-year-old.
it's clear in principle as far as a policy goes, but it's not clear in implementation. So what I would say, if this is passed, is I would say, Tom, please present to us at the next board meeting how you intend to implement what Marty's doing, because you mean every single day, or do you mean,
3,500 tee times. You get them all by June
not
2nd.
tee
does he have the
times, rounds.
flexibility to do it?
Rounds.
Wait a minute, does he have the
Big
flexibility to do it on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday?
I don't care.
You don't care, that's important.
And
You can't book
Marty-
anything outside here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You didn't know that?
You know, I tell you what, I can personally
We're a private
vote
club those
for
days.
this because I know it is already being implemented.
Well, then
and
why
that's
should we
why
talk about it
Harlan,
anymore
that's
then?
why Harlan doesn't have an objection. It's a piece of cake.
It's been brought to the board, you tell me it's being implemented, but I
Yeah.
don't know what what the rules are in terms of implementation, because Bill just mentioned, can I book these things today for next July?
And
the answer
if
was
you
yes.
ask management,
Provided
they
it's
will
not
tell you,
taken.
they
No.
will tell you in excruciating detail what those.
They will tell you, I'll bet you if I call
And by
Astro-
the way, it meets the intent of what Marty wants.
And you'd all have a hard time trying to book a tea time for March because nobody will answer the phone.
But yeah,
Pete?
but
I think
All right,
Marty,
all right.
That's a
let
different
me
story.
speak. Let's
Different
call the
story.
question.
different story.
Les, you were going to say
I am
something?
supportive of the concept. I have only one modification that I would like to suggest.
Listening.
Okay. Leaving the details to implementation, Marty, and I think to the Golf Pro, and I've got the same memo you've probably got, Harlan's analysis of it and so forth, but when he talks about the distribution of the reserve shall be at the discretion of the golf professional based on prior facility booking. So, here's my reservation and my suggested alternative. That we make it for 1 year only and see what happens. If we don't do that, let's try this. Let's try it for a year.
We've been trying it since '06.
Marty, this is now being institutionalized at a board level.
No, it's really not, Pete. It's only a motion. It's not a resolution.
Well,
in any time management, the reason why we're doing this, in my
excuse me,
opinion.
I tried to undo a motion previously passed by a board with a simple little thing, some accounting. and
That
it
was a
didn't pass.
resolution.
Oh, okay, I beg your pardon.
All right, but here's the thing. Let me tell you why
And
we're
by the
doing
way,
this.
that resolutions are covered by the bylaws.
Yeah, they are.
Let
So
me
this
tell
is just a
you why
motion.
we're doing this.
We can
We're
undo
doing this
this.
because it wasn't done last summer.
Right. We can
Okay?
undo this, right?
We can undo this.
Okay.
Now, and if we pass this, we're going to ask Tom maybe
Okay.
to have your pro come in, or your
Then I'm
manager
okay.
come in
I'm
and
okay.
give us a presentation of how this is going to be implemented.
Yes.
Can you do that?
But I don't think the board ought to
What
get
the hell?
involved in the
We don't need
details
to-
of the
The
implementation.
board
Agree, Marty?
that way the board will become the golf task force.
No.
And it'll be cool.
We'll be told. We'll be
Because
informed
this is
then.
one of dozens of little things that
I'm okay.
that affect
So-
celebration.
Call the question.
Wait a minute, Marty, your intent, I'm not as smart as the rest of them, I guess. Your intent is for 3,500 rounds over what period of time?
You didn't say.
He didn't say.
It's obviously in a year, in this budget year.
He's not obvious to me.
No, it's
That's
not. He
why I
could
asked.
reserve them all the way.
He doesn't care.
We
as
can
long
do
as
that
we're
over
at
the next
35.
Marty,
Okay.
with your
That's his
resolution,
answer.
Marty, with your resolution, he could come up and reserve them all in November, December, and January.
I guess that, I agree with you, Les.
Which I wouldn't do.
And I agree in principle.
That's why we have to hear what the
Not
plan
if you
is.
had any real deep
Marty, that's why we
perspective.
have to hear what the plan is, okay?
We need to see the plan.
need to see
I don't want to manage the golf course.
Of course you do.
Unless you're going to give me the
And
property.
we don't need
All
it.
right, so I think we understand what's going on here.
I think it's a
By the
reasonable
way,
goal.
prime morning tea times are not in November
Thank
in
you.
Ocean City.
He's got it.
Well, he understands too.
But
yeah.
something like this has to be bumped against the marketing director.
Well, we will.
Yeah, I have
Well,
sent
let's go.
this, she has had a copy of this in her hands.
We will.
I've not heard back
John,
from
you
her.
have anything else on this? We're going to get a plan.
Okay, as long as we get a plan,
I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay. Next motion, Marty.
GTS to come later.
I move that the Board of Directors instruct the General Manager to introduce a new membership program in order to, quote, increase membership, unquote, as promised in his 2008 golf business plan. The new membership program, will make all golf membership types available to any golfer under the age of, pick an age, I'm using 37, years old for one-half the price of a regular membership cost. The new membership shall enjoy all the privileges of regular membership.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, discussion.
Marty, you said pick an age.
37 is Eastport Yacht Club.
Okay.
40 is Columbia Country Club. Pick an age. I don't care,
I guess the only question I have is, Marty, why are we discriminating against seniors?
because they deserve it.
I hope
No,
We're doing the same thing in
Of course not.
tennis, John, and it's worked a little bit.
Because
Yeah,
everybody that is playing is a senior.
It's the only one we've increased a lot of membership. We've worked a little bit, and it's beginning to grow. As
Here's
younger
the-
members
John,
come out.
I understand
here's
that,
the-
but-
We can age discriminate. We really can. Everybody else
I
does.
It's not discrimination.
It's
The
not.
fact is, if you have a 35-year-old family living in Ocean Pines, working for a living, playing golf, he isn't taking up your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, AM tee times.
Nice.
He's out working.
And if he's laid off, he's not out golfing. He's
And he's not a member now, because how many 37-year-old members we got now?
That's the question.
By the way, it's the biggest selling membership
None, right?
at
Well, we
Ocean
don't
City
know.
Golf
You
and
don't
Yacht.
know that.
He just shook
Well,
his head no.
We have a couple, that's all.
A couple, okay. So,
If that.
Marty, we would be remiss, I would be remiss if I didn't ask the question
Oh, no,
as
it's
to why
okay.
you expect it.
'Cause I don't like golfing.
You know, that age. I look at the couple of golfers in here that are paying full price, and, you know, I think I understand where I'm trying to include membership, and I applaud this effort. I just want to make sure it's what. you know,
This is
right on
the only motion I got a
John,
negative
nobody,
response.
none of the, when the people in the tennis community learned and saw how they're dying out every year, they said, yeah, we're going to welcome this. So we won't get many complaints about this.
I would like to see this actually be carried across many of our amenities,
I agree.
I agree.
you know, especially
I agree.
aquatics.
I agree.
yeah, Marty, I think this is certainly consistent with what other clubs do, generally speaking, and that is to provide a break for younger people. And the idea is not because they financially need the break, it's rather to entice them, induce them to experience golf, and then they grow into it, and as they get older, they pay the regular fee, right? So the concept is not a new concept. It's one that you're familiar with, one I'm familiar with. So I support it. I don't think it's going to have much of a difference.
Ooh.
Well, no, in this sense. Sorry. Because of what was just said. This age person is not retired. They don't have Tuesdays. They're not going to be taking up the time. So it's fine. Now, to the extent we can encourage and entice, motivate people to take up golf and play golf at Ocean Pines, I'm all for it. So now,
Pete, I understand and I agree. I'm just looking at some of the things we've done in the past. We did something like this last year for the tennis, but it was only for a 1-year period of time. Did you put it in?
How many did you get?
About 10.
I could look, I don't know, we got a bunch, 15 or something like that.
Okay.
I
If we got 15 members that we don't have now,
That's winner.
I'd be real happy.
And I just- I shouldn't discuss this anymore because we're gonna just call it a question, but Buddy Sass at Ocean City Golf and Yacht said some real key things here. 'Cause they have this program and it's a big hit for them. And his thing was, look, I get a 30-year-old golfer paying half, he's gonna generate more revenues for my club than a 65-year-old paying full.
Depends on who he's playing behind. In any event,
Yeah.
Ocean City Golf Course, Tom did a little research through Harlan and everything. They have 3 different age groups. Under 25, the regular rate's $1,500. 25, it's 1/3 of that, but at 35, it's half. So the half concept is at least supported by one course in the area, Ocean City, right? $750 for 35-year-olds instead of $1,500. You just grabbed 37 instead of 35 or something.
I took it because it's fine, it's a yacht club I brought.
Does anybody have any thoughts on whether the right age is 37 or not? I mean, I just don't have enough information.
No, but I do have my own comments on it.
I'm gonna depart from the rules, and Jim, have you got
No,
any?
just ask you, what would you do for tennis? I mean, what age did you set?
50. The average, what bothers me a little bit is we don't know the average age of our membership, or all our ages
Your
in
number's
membership.
between
for
35
golf,
and
do we?
40, right?
We don't know the
Well, we
average
sure
age.
should. We know it in tennis.
pulled it out of my
And they're all old.
35 and 40.
They're pretty much all old in golf as well, and I think this is a great idea.
If you made it 50, you probably would do better.
Why not make it a 25?
Oh, yeah.
Let's try this first.
Harlan had that average age.
Let's just try first.
You might,
I would point out that Ocean City Golf Course also reduces your rate when you become 80 years of age.
Oh, I forgot to add that.
we do that too.
We'd lose most of our
They
members.
do. They absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Yes.
At my club, at the age of 68, you never pay another dollar except for the bar and which is your minimum.
I know that.
And if you
All right.
should take a car.
And a lot
We
of
had more discussion about
private
this.
clubs do that.
Yes.
All right,
More discussion.
call the
I had
question.
my hand up.
More discussion?
Yeah. Basically, I'm not going to vote for it, but I would suggest.
Oh, boo.
I would suggest that if instead we could simply direct the general manager to create a plan, get back to the board immediately with it for doing this. I don't want to tell him to do this exactly. Okay, I would like to have more information. I mean, even the conversation today has had more information than I had. You're looking mystified. Like, what more information do I need?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like, I'd like to know exactly what the impact is,
Well, we know what the impact is.
Well, you don't know.
We don't.
That's exactly, but you can figure out what the projected impact might be. What are the details exactly of how the other clubs are doing it? I mean, why pick one out of...
Well, we're telling him to implement it, he can go look that up.
Yeah, in this case, I don't see where it makes much sense.
Telling him what to do, not how to do it.
Is this a motion now that we
It is
can...
a motion.
Okay, then he has
No,
the
no,
flexibility.
The point is,
One more point, and I know Pete says, let's just try this one, but you didn't mention a two-tier that Ocean City has. As we're trying to compete against our neighbors and all, do you think it's worthwhile to do it a three-tier, Marty? I mean, you brought it up. I
Might
don't
be,
know.
what I'm trying to do
try
is
this,
generate,
Yeah, I know.
he has a hard time with his R's, generate revenues.
You getting hungry, Marty? Sugar level
I'm
down?
gonna call the question.
I shouldn't have
I'm gonna call the question.
called it
All in
question.
favor?
Aye,
Opposed? Okay, 6-1.
6-1.
Marty?
You're on a roll, Marty. I
I'm getting tired
3.
now.
don't care what your next one is, I'm voting
This
against
is
it.
a short one. I move the Board of Directors direct our general manager to open our golf operations at First Light as do our competition, as
Do I have a
does our
second?
competition.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes. First Light, you make a broad statement here as to our competition.
Earlier,
Where's the, I mean, I don't know. Where's the data that says, I have 14 golf courses into my cell phone that I call from time to time. I don't know what those 14 golf courses are. There are probably 20 some in the area, right?
if
I-
it was
I
mine,
don't
it would
know.
be what time can you get here?
The consequences of this are real and relate to expenses, okay? First Light means you've got to have the course ready to go. And Tom, you're the general manager, and you've spoken with Harlan about this, and I think, I heard last night when I talked to someone that this is something that was proposed in the past, and it was found that, yeah, it's a good idea, but when you measure the costs and the problems associated with it, it was decided at that time to not deviate from the established starting time, which is what, 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock. For you non-golfers, it's 7 a.m., okay? First Light could be 5:30.
in summer, sure.
There's a maintenance issue, gentlemen. You can't have the workers out there at night at 11 o'clock following the round of golf the day before, fixing up the golf course. So I think this is one where I would want more information as to its impact before I'd be willing to support it. Again, I'm all supportive of additional tee times by doing earlier, and maybe it's a half hour earlier, I don't know. But a First Light concept to me is not the right way to approach it, and I'd rather get more input from the golf
Call it 6
professional.
o'clock.
Could we make it half an hour earlier? A half an hour.
I can support a half an hour.
Half an
I
hour
can't,
earlier
you know.
is $1,000 a day.
Marty,
If you
we're
can
in the
fill
dark
it, you gotta
ages.
sell it
If you can
first.
fill it. If
Marty,
you can't
you
fill
gotta
it,
sell
then
it.
you got another problem.
Marty, we're in the dark ages, so it doesn't really make a difference right now. If we tell the general manager, ask the general manager at the next meeting to present to us a proposal to support in principle Marty's nomination, could you do that?
I can do that. I want you to all be aware, though, that there's another piece to this.
Well, you can give it all to us at the
Okay,
next
because when
meeting.
you fire up those cutters at 5
Noise.
o'clock in the morning.
Give us all the pros and cons, the whole thing.
9 o'clock in the morning? 5.
When you do the-
You do the 10th,
There are
11th,
complications
and
here,
12th
gentlemen, so-
today. You do the first, second, and
I would
third
like to
tomorrow.
defer this
The
until we have
principle
more
of what you're
information.
trying to do, Marty, is to get them to open up earlier.
Right.
Last summer, when I would
and-
go over to Ocean
and he heard
Pines,
us.
and nobody would be playing, and we wouldn't
I
be
know
open,
that.
I would then drive over to River Run and couldn't find a parking place,
Okay,
and see
so Tom, you know
golfers
what we
on
want,
every
right?
hole.
So you're tabling this motion?
I'm not tabling
Well,
it
we
yet.
can vote on
It's
it.
been- it's
Let's
been-
vote on it.
it's- Well, but the
Well,
point
it's
is
a
that,
withdrawal.
is that before we vote on it, if Marty would withdraw it,
Right.
then we can reinstitute it next month. It doesn't make any difference. I believe in the principle, what you're doing is absolutely right, Marty.
The First Light's just too broad, and I think we
Sure.
need to get input about.
If there's a way that it can be done, it should be done.
It should be done.
Let me read this
with that.
as a new way and see if it
Go ahead,
modifies
go ahead.
that. I move that the Board of Directors direct the general manager to prepare a operation hours schedule for our golf operation to take advantage of as many tee times as may be available.
Okay,
That's fine.
and present it to us.
Just who seconded the last?
I'll second it. I'll
It
second
would
it.
go through the Golf Advisory Committee when we, after we form it, but if not, it'll have to be presented directly.
The point
to
is,
management
that
by
if we can't run the golf operation on a time card, bureaucratic, my hours are 7 to 4 mindset.
Well, what time do the golf?
Operating hours, golf.
No,
At 10 to 7, there's nobody there. Not in the
What time does the
grill,
maintenance
not
crew
at.
start?
All right,
Doesn't matter.
let's read
probably
Marty's,
near
let's read
5:30.
Marty's amended motion right now, okay?
Go ahead.
One more time.
I move that the Board of Directors direct our general manager to prepare an operational hours schedule to take advantage of as many AMT times as possible.
Okay.
Okay.
that's fair.
So technically, we gotta,
Is that
other
all right? Is it
motions
second?
withdrawn, and here's the new motion. Do we have any more discussion on this?
No, it's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I have one committee member that I'd like to appoint with your consent. It's, how do you pronounce that? Y-A-L-E-E? Yale? Yale Marcus for the Club's Advisory Committee. It's in your package, and
Was
the
it?
chair recommends
Yes.
yes. So therefore, with your concurrence, I will appoint him to that
Somebody probably took
committee.
yours out, Marty.
Now,
They did this scoundrel.
all right, you're done. Public comments.
Whoa,
What?
Why are you going
Oh,
through
I'm
mine?
sorry.
What the heck is that about?
I'm sorry.
Move adjournment.
Done with golf. Bob, I apologize.
And he picked you as vice
I'm
president.
trying to move forward here. Now, you've got a presentation you'd like to
It's
give.
gonna be much quicker than what we're going through.
Okay.
Instead of the banter, I just put some things together real quick on the screen of what, before I pass the motion. I guess I should read.
Bob, are you actually going to introduce a motion?
I am. The motion is, in an effort to stabilize our underperforming facility, I move that the board act on the receipts of on the unsolicited receipts from Kemper Sports and RBC to outside golf management companies. Their respective approaches, experience, and past success in golf course
You
management.
distributed that, right?
Yeah, I distributed.
Second. Okay.
All right.
Discussion.
Yeah,
discussion,
so the
make a
question, the
presentation.
motion is, in terms of the
to talk
board
to
act, what you're saying is,
He passes out before.
To allow them to come in
yeah, but,
And make a
just
presentation.
make a
And make a
presentation.
To the board.
That's it, to the board.
that's all right.
And
Yeah, I just want to clarify.
the only thing that I would recommend we consider modifying here is if we're able to get the Golf Advisory Committee together prior to these folks coming in, we should include them along with the board.
Do we need your presentation if we are willing to vote on this without any?
Oh, you're gonna see,
discussion?
because I spent 2 hours doing it.
I don't want to spend 2 hours discussing.
No, no,
this,
it's
Bob.
gonna
I think if you call the question,
Oh, no.
Bob, you may get it passed now before you show all this
Oh,
stuff.
I'll get it passed.
You may talk yourself out of it.
I will get it
You mean
passed.
he didn't promise you much?
Bullshit.
I'm going to vote no if he gives the presentation.
I'm going to vote no if you.
I'm going to vote no with that attitude.
Yeah.
No, it's
I
gonna
vote
pass.
no.
We got 3 no's.
I don't have a
Either
problem.
way.
Let's
vote no.
I don't have any problem not doing it. Actually, John, I don't have a problem not going through this for the sake of time, as long as we're all
No, no, let's
getting...
hear it. I want to hear what you wasted your time doing.
Oh, no, it's not a big deal. My goal is to get it passed.
Watch your cap.
I, for one, am supportive of Bob because I know what it's like to put a lot of time in preparation of things and have them rejected. So
we don't
go
have
ahead.
The night before the board
Nobody
meeting.
knows better than
Turn the
I
lights
do.
off, please.
Oh, well, we can go through it. I mean, it's up to you guys.
I appreciate, no, I want.
All right. We have...
All right, go ahead.
All right. We're going to go through it real quick. Basically, my information was all, I talked to Art, I've got a number of different sources I want to share with you. I did many interviews over the last 60 days. Past golf members and current golf members. I also talked with several pros in the area. Again, let me make sure everybody understands, I'm a non-golfer, okay? So I had to educate myself, so I'm going out talking with people. I read every report to include the latest, the task force report, which Dave pointed out I had not seen last time. Okay, so this is the information that I gathered. starting with the Golf Task Force report. Dave already went over it earlier, so I'm not going to belabor it, but basically eliminate the operational deficits suffered by golf operations. That was the primary mission. Here are the findings. Interesting. And this was right out of the report dated 16 September. The majority of our current members played less than 20 rounds a year. There was a disconnect that wasn't noticed until and rectified until August. So despite all the good intentions, we didn't do anything to fix it until August. Reservation system is a non-optimal manner. It doesn't function in the way that we're hoping to gain the most golf. Turn grill, that one seemed okay. I believe that it's now being of the overall golf experience. It's not just another F&B outlet. Now the positive that came out of it, you notice I did highlight it in yellow, was we recently hired a marketing director for golf. That was the one thing that I saw out of the findings, and these were cut and paste. I didn't do anything but highlight them just to point them out.
Thank you.
September 16th report, okay.
This, yeah, everything on the bottom is my source. The conclusion of the report, the highlight is the red. This was, I thought, it's all good, but this was, the group chose to address options within the existing management framework, although it was aware that there are other golf management companies that outsourcing could be a possibility. I bring it up, and let me make sure I point out, it makes a lot of sense that they didn't consider outsourcing, okay? And my primary reason why, think of the folks that were on the Golf Task Force. If you look at the folks serving on it, Harlan, our Golf Pro, well, of course they're not going to say outsource and kick me out of my job. So the rationale was there, but I just want to point out that it wasn't really considered through the task force. Recommendation, all right, I'm moving on to the Profit Builders report. Their recommendations: maintain a quality product, offer improved value without cheapening the product, do not chase reckless lower prices, increase sales and marketing efforts, and do not only sell new business, but to maintain existing customers. That one I want to make sure we understand. Maintain existing customers. I'm going to show you some slides that conflict with that. Areas that we should be concerned with. Now again, this report was 25 March 09. Payroll and overtime in the golf budget have increased in the golf department beyond what would be normally expected. This is right out of the report. Maintenance budget is slightly higher than budgets of courses with similar size and condition. Again, I'm pulling the pieces out to support what I'm asking for in the motion. Other areas, marketing initiatives. This one, again, as I dug into it, our golf course, tee time is very low, 28,389 rounds in 08. The average utilization for our type of course is 40,000 rounds. So we're significantly lower in rounds for similar courses in our area. Here are the courses, facility type and number in our market. There are 5 private, 4 public premium, 12 public value, which is where we fall in, and 5 public price. Okay? Here's where we fit in. Now, if we're competing against a 12 and we're 12 to 13,000 rounds low, when our goal is, we've got a golf marketing director that we've brought in that's targeting 3,000 to 4,000 rounds, we're still going to be shy rounds. There was another report, the operational analysis of the Ocean Pines Country Club that included the golf. That was in 06. I went back to 06 and read that. Hiring an outside management company as an option is reasonable. It's right in the report. I went back to get validation. So all the reports that I found that we have all mention at least considering it as an alternative source. Losses of our golf course. Now, you can talk, and trust me, folks, I've spent 45 days digging through numbers. Everyone you talk to gives you a little different number. So I decided the easiest numbers for me to use were going to be right out of the budget book, and it says actual numbers. I validated these with Art. So my numbers aren't off. Basically, what I did was take revenue, expenses, and our differences. So you see, 05 and 06, we were around 50,000, I'm sorry, '05, we were around 80,000, dropped down to just above 50. But look at the last 3 years and then our projected for next year. These are right off of our budget numbers, actual numbers. Now,
You say budget, you mean actual?
actual, but the 2011 is not real, correct, not realized.
You would have to change 10 and run it up almost to the,
Well, I'm going with the hard numbers that I got.
And
I'm
yes,
not-
We've got 5 years of actual up there, and
Correct.
the rest is...
Correct. Okay, so just so everyone knows where we are. Now, conversely, look at our membership. It continues to fall.
That's neat.
You like that?
I do.
So and I had numbers back to '02. Look at the slant. '05 was the only. I try to look back. Again. We're less than half in 9 years. I just, all the good intention, yes,
Do you have a similar slide for revenue?
I do not. I do not.
I think in fairness, if you had a similar slide for revenue, you would not show that pattern at all. In fact, over the last 5 years, what you would show, Bob, and I've got the numbers, is a 17% increase in revenue. I'm not suggesting, the bottom line is the bottom line.
That's the bottom line to me.
Price
But the point-
Waterhouse
the
does
point
look at the
is-
bottom line, right?
The point is, the revenue has not done nearly as bad. In fact, it's actually increased over time. Not enough, of course, but
Right.
not that dramatic. I wish you had done revenue, because you
Well-
would see a different... Now,
Pete,
that's not the problem.
this is
That's
an
not the
important question.
I'm just fairness.
Yeah, okay.
Because I flunked out of the Price Waterhouse School of Accounting. and
With
that-
good reason. Go
Good
ahead.
reason. When you talk about that increase in revenue that we saw a couple years ago, you don't caveat that with the fact that we took over the merchandise sales, the pro shop sales.
That was in a single year.
Yeah, and that's your added revenue. You
No,
can't find it.
Right, well, here's the deal,
In
guys.
4 out of the last 5 years, the revenue has increased over the prior year.
All right, but
Thank you.
go ahead.
Keep going,
My-
keep going, keep
My
going, keep
point
going.
with this,
Keep going.
forget revenue, we're
going.
losing members. Our members keep our lights on. I get so tired of hearing members are bad, it's bad, you know, the bulb's bad, or are you kidding me? They're the folks that have stayed, the 312, and I know that there's a swag in there. You know,
Yeah, big swag.
well, no, but there's a swag of new members that have come on, some we lost, some we gained. But I'll tell you, the majority of those 300 have been with us a long time. They're keeping, you know, the lights on at this point. So we need, forget revenues, to me, we're losing, we have a continual decline in membership, which means we're not doing a great job serving our clients, which first we need to focus on our members, and in addition to that, the outside play. Facts, members are the foundation of. And they are and they have been. We can't forget that. Our course is in awesome shape and getting better every day. Harlan and his team have made our course, everyone I've talked to, all the folks I interviewed, rave about the playability of the course.
Absolutely.
Kind of sucks
Continue.
right now, but you know.
Well, with the snow, not today, but again, as of 30 January, I was still accurate. February snow didn't come. We have a unique draw being Robert Trent Jones course. There's none in our region. Okay, that is a unique draw for golfers. As I went through interviews and talked to people, that's something that we should benefit from. Golf course does add value. I know a lot of people say, oh no, it's a drain. Let me tell you folks, amenities add value to properties. I was in the mortgage business, the lending business, the banking business for years. Having amenities as part of your community adds value.
How do we get that message out?
What's that?
How do we get that message out?
Things like this, I'm trying to put out.
True.
Basically, we've got to find a better way to do it. And I just put a little quote from Edison. Life's failures are men who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up. Hence, we ought to consider all options. And that's it for the slides. My point is, we ought to consider all options. If we have, I've talked to unsolicited, Kemper Golf called me. You can turn those on, Tom, if you want. What?
They called you?
They called me, Doug Hellman. I don't know, he called me out of the blue, and I'm not sure where it came from. But I know we have two proposals, one from RDC, Golf Profit Builders, Matt, and one from Doug Hellman, who's called from Kemper Golf. He said, I talked to him for about an hour. He had, again,
Well, when you say proposal, we had an offer to come down. and
Offer to
discuss
come
the-
in and discuss it with
discuss
us.
the thing. And an inquiry.
Correct.
Could you turn that one on? Are you done with that?
I'm done.
I'll let me turn it off.
Yeah, great. Here, let me move back.
Otherwise, it just,
All right,
Does it need to cool down?
I was gonna sit down, but then I'd be blind.
You're in the spotlight. Yeah, is that better for you? Now you can call the motion.
I'm really glad we saw that.
What's that?
I said I'm really glad we saw that.
Appreciate that.
We can talk as long as we want, but it is lunchtime.
What's that?
Anybody, any more discussion on this?
Yeah,
I want
just to say that I'm in favor of getting information all the time, every time, and as much as we can, and from every source that we can, and looking at the alternatives. So bringing other people in to look at or to discuss, or at least start the process of saying, okay, here's what we do and so forth, and being able to ask questions is fine. I mean, so, and that's what the motion says, and, you know, there's no problem.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm very supportive, and I said it at the outset, and I agree with that. I'm curious, though, these two firms, I'm a golfer, but not a very good one, and not as regular as some of the other people. But I don't know the golf management companies. Are there a lot of them? Why these two? I know they called you. You sent in unsolicited.
Yeah, the two, I'll give you my reasoning. RDC, which is Golf Profit Builders, I'm responding to information I dug out and brought back. They know our course, they have a relationship, so it makes sense to me.
The other one just calling out of the blue?
Yeah, Kemper Golf, this Doug Hellman, and again, everyone understands sales. Yeah, if you look at Kemper.
I have Googled it.
I went, after he called me.
Well, I'm sure Kemper's in there.
Kemper was
of the ones on the East Coast. I would say a half a dozen is what I recall. I mean, there was much more than that, but a lot of them are Western, states oriented.
There's a lot of golf management.
But Bob, as I understand it, we have the relationship with the one.
Correct.
They're logical.
Correct.
Somebody else contacted you.
And I spoke with them.
And we're not seeking proposals at this point. We're having discussion to see what. Yeah, to explore the concept.
Interestingly, they manage over 90 courses. And some of this, because of scale, some of the purchasing power, some of the other, really intriguing to me from a business perspective.
I got a question for you on this. Yeah. How do you envision implementation of this? Are you going to back out of it and turn it over to the general manager, or what are we going to do?
I'll do whatever the board thinks we ought to do.
A board presentation is a board presentation.
We should turn it over to the general manager and have the general manager take it over and present it back.
I'm okay with that.
Via us. In other words, I'm talking about who's going to, we're going to take it off you.
You don't feel the need to administer it, set up the time?
No, but I can't, I mean.
Yeah, I would not think a board presentation, or maybe a board presentation, but certainly public. I mean, and encourage. Because I think what you need is good questions.
Right.
You need good questions, and from more people as possible.
Okay, but Tom, if we turn it over to you, we want you to get these guys in.
I can work with Tom White, but I mean, if you...
But what I mean is that if I turn this over to somebody that's going to run the marina, to our marina guy, he's not going to try hard to get him to come in and have outside management. He's going to... Doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm going to try hard if I got to drive up to Baltimore and get
Okay,
going.
good.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? No. Okay.
Bob, we'll follow up though. You approved it, right? Okay. I do like that idea about trying to dovetail it with the advisory committee if we can.
Absolutely, I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get to.
And I want to apologize on the record. You're right. Golf revenue.
Is the camera on?
Listen, because this is important. Going by actuals only, because that's all I have here.
Actuals only.
Actual only. Revenues have increased from 05, 1,053,245, to the last actual 09, 1,884,264, which is a $30,000 improvement in revenues. The problem is, in that same time frame, our bottom line loss has gone up 165%, from 71,467 to 189,912.
You're just saying included. If I had this...
I'm just saying that the revenue is really not an important figure if...
Who seconded it?
Correct.
I would never say revenue is an unimportant figure. I would never say that.
I would say the bottom line is.
All right, I'm going to move on here. Public comments. Yes.
Hi, Bill Wentworth, Chairman of the Club's Advisory Committee. I live at 7 Trinity Place here in Ocean City. Ocean Pine.
He's on his way out.
It's been a long day.
Right, it's fading. I got 3 or 4 comments or questions. At the beginning, we were talking about, the board was talking about the slots task force and the 15 members of the slots task force. very conspicuous by its absence was membership of that task force, if I heard it right, from the biggest community in Worcester County, which would be Ocean Pine.
No, we have,
No,
our police
no,
chief said it, our police chief said it, I believe there's two other, at least
Okay.
two other members who reside here.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's more than that.
Okay, well, good.
There may be four.
Okay, good. I just didn't have to hear it. I wanted to make sure we represent. Okay.
You remember Chief Murray, Rob Murray, he's on it,
Okay.
as well as Massey and Jim Rosenberg.
Okay, follow-up. I hear during the discussion, Marty brought up about the signage issue that they talked about in the budget. Dave or someone was talking about the membership plan for golf, and then they didn't say anything happened with it. It sounds to me that things are being done or approved or passed, and then there's no follow-up done. You know, we shouldn't be talking about the budget process has been going on for 5 months. We shouldn't be talking about on the day that you're voting on the budget, where's money in here for this electric sign? Whenever that was established, that should be an ongoing thing, is from my perspective. It's part of your agenda and what's going on. Real concern in this big discussion about the golf. Several times, I believe I heard Dave say, "Well, this was something that was supposed to happen, and that something was supposed to happen, but it wasn't implemented. It wasn't implemented." Why isn't it implemented? Now, understand my perception. I'm a non-golfer. Okay, so my perception of why maybe some of these things weren't implemented, because it would have a negative effect on business as usual over there. Me getting my normal Wednesday morning tea time or Friday morning tea time, I don't know. But and I don't know. You're shaking your head, Pete. I don't know. But the point is,
Wasn't at that level.
but the point is, perception is reality to the person who's perceiving it. So anyone who's not involved in the golf community could very easily perceive what I'm perceiving. You know, if these things are supposed to be happening, then there's no reason for them not to be implemented. And we need to follow up with what's going on there. And also, whether it's the Golf Advisory Committee or any advisory committee, I think it would be very poor practice to have all members of that Golf Advisory Committee people who play golf. That would be like on my advisory committee, everyone on there having owned or operated a bar or restaurant, or everyone on the 10-year plan having construction background. You need a wide variety and scope of people. If, when you get to that point, I suggest very strongly that you do that. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more? Mr. Benton?
Ralph Menton, 60 Cannon Drive. Just a couple quick things. I've had the pleasure of speaking to a number of you gentlemen over the last 2 weeks regarding golf. And the one comment I'd like to make is that, first of all, this task force I saw here, I missed that part of the meeting, but I think that'll make, in the 10 years I've been here, the 9th task force we've had. At some point in time, I would hope that we turn this stuff over to either an outside company or management, with the caveat that things that I think you just mentioned about it was supposed to be implemented and it wasn't. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, I don't care whether you're military, business, school teacher, or whatever. When somebody up here says this gets done, it should get done. Or the guy up here, or the guys up here should be checking on that with a checklist at a certain point in time to make sure it has been done. And if it hasn't been done, to have the reasons and not sit here a year later and say, well, we agreed on that last year. Where's the sign? Okay. Where's our checks and balances? Where's our simple management tools of a list that says this is what should be done in January, February, March, April, blah, 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 blah. So the other thing I just would like to mention is all of this stuff is well and good, okay? But you've got to fix your product before you spend the money to market your product. And quite candidly, and I've had this discussion with a number of people in this room, I have seen, especially in the last year, that your product, okay, meaning from the pro shop out, has deteriorated, okay, with the exception, okay, of the condition of the golf course. You have a very good greenskeeper, probably one of the best I've seen in my years of doing golf, okay. But in any business, you don't take your chief technician and automatically make him your new director of golf, okay? And I think he's a fine young man, I think he's done a fine job, okay? But I question whether he is the person that you all need to run your golf amenity at Ocean Pines, okay? Personal opinion, but it's one that's been shared with me by a number of people in the golf community, okay? Fix your customer service, okay? Because bringing people in once and getting crappy customer service it means you're never going to see them again, and you're not going to see 10 other people that they talk. So I would suggest a lot of your problems need to be fixed at the grassroots level before you go out with all these grandiose plans. Trust me, it's easier to fix if you get the right people in the job, from what I've seen in my experience. So a number of you have called me in the last 2 weeks to ask my opinion. I appreciate that. You asked me to come today. And that's talking from a member. And your member, I agree, your members are your assets, especially the ones you got left. I said to one of the gentlemen I talked to, I can't remember which one now, okay, your members treat your paying customers or your daily customers far better than the staff in the golf amenity does. I have seen firsthand this last year or so, okay, members, when they see somebody strange on the golf course, how did you like your round today? How did you enjoy it? I sit in the Terms Grill. Members will turn to people walking in. How'd you guys like the course? How'd you like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. You know, good place for dinner, etc. So your core membership that you have here are the people like myself, like Mr. Beisler, etc., who've been here for a lot of years and have changed their minds 180 degrees from wanting it to be a private course to realizing that we need that outside income to make it stay in the future. Okay, private clubs, unless you've got a lot of money, are dying on the vines, excuse me. Okay, so I would just say that your membership is, I think, is behind a lot of stuff that you want to do, but they also want the product.
Thank you for those comments.
Well said. Thank you.
I think we need to hear bad things when things are bad. We begin this kind of a groupthink thing, and people are afraid to complain. But constructive criticism, given the right way, will make everybody realize we have a problem when we assume we don't.
Well,
because if you made a statement that is a pretty strong statement a little while ago, I'm not going to reiterate it again, but if we're not providing the product and service we should, we need to fix it. Right?
And I would also say to you, Bill, that at the October general meeting, we had about 60 people in the audience. And I personally knew probably 58 of them, okay? And of those 58, well over half had come to me during the year with comments and suggestions and things like, we're ordering stuff through the pro shop and it's not getting done, okay, stuff like that. And when it got time for them, when we had his management team there, Harlan and his crew, none of them raised their hands. Okay, the people, people they want to criticize, but they don't want to be the bad guy.
Well, we are instituting a program on customer service. Maybe you missed that part, but at the same time, that's a serious thing. That isn't lightly taken by the board, and the general manager is aware of that. Any more public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I wasn't going to say anything.
But who are you?
I can't resist. Cheryl Mills. For starters, I'd like to point out, food for thought. Most of his group of players at Ocean City are former members of Ocean Pines. golf course. Food for thought. The second thing, we both were on the Board of Governors at different times. At that time, governors was mostly social. So, set that aside. I don't know what the overlap is now. But I think you need to be careful about task force, advisory committees, boards, blah, blah, blah. You have too much overlap, you have too much friction, you have too many committees, and nothing gets done. You have a general manager and you have a board. Aren't they supposed to be running and implementing most of these things? That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Kessler.
Bob Kessler, 9 Dockside Court. I only wanted to mention one thing that came out of golf probabilities that Bob didn't mention, and that has to do with the director of golf. They said regardless of whether you hire or task us to manage your golf operations, this will not eliminate the need for the director of golf position. But you will still maintain that. And I'll be very interested in seeing what the management companies come back with, because what I will be looking for in their presentations is what are they going to manage and what are they going to control? What will we control and what will we allow them to control?
I think I'm going to try to make sure you're a member of that new golf advisory committee.
Don't steal mine, I just added on my list already.
You can have multiple submissions, by the way.
No, and that's basically it, because when you give up control of your operations, you need to know what it is that they're going to do for you and what you're going to do, because we're not giving up any
We
any
aren't
cost.
agreeing to give up anything. We're
No.
agreeing to listen. And
And
learn.
it'll be interesting to see what they have to
Right.
say.
And we should be smart listening and learning. Okay, thank you, Bob. Anybody else? Mr. Reynolds?
Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road. Let's see. During the discussion about the movement of the facility from the yacht club to the country club temporarily, which again, keep in mind, all that talk is about a temporary operation. I mean, we've devoted as much time to that, or maybe more than we've devoted recent memory to the yacht club itself. And we're talking about something that's temporary. But at any rate, Les made an interesting comment that kind of becomes more interesting with a comment that Tom Olson made. Les said in reference to that operation, planning to fail makes no sense. Chris, Les, I agree with you 100%. Tom Olson, though, said, in relation to the budget, if not for losses from the county, in other words, the loss of the county roads fund, if not for losses from the county, we'd be in great shape right now. Well, take those two comments together. Les, planning to fail is not an option or whatever. And Tom, our budget in great shape right now. Well, Les, I'd point out that this board that you were on last year and this board this year has voted consistently to plan to fail. Consistently. On aquatics, during the current year, we plan to lose $162,000. We're actually going to lose $211,000.
So we beat that.
On aquatics. The budget was a planned loss of $162,000 on operations. The forecasted loss is $211,000. We planned to lose $162,000, but we're forecasting that we're going to lose $211,000. On tennis, we plan to lose $1177.88. We're projecting to lose $13,400. On golf, we planned to lose $85,388. The projected loss is now at $239,800. At Turns Grill, we planned to lose $16,163. Right now, that's only at $15,000. So, gee, we're ahead. We're improving on our losses at Turns Grill by $1,100 or so. We planned to lose $174,000 on the yacht club. Right now, the projected loss is only at $49,000. But I agree with Marty. Things have improved over here in terms of dollars, but I agree with Marty that to compare the operation this year against a highly inflated $174,000 budgeted planned loss. Doesn't make any sense when you figure that we lost the prior salary for the prior manager, we lost a chef, we cut back on other salaries. As Marty said, you know, you can fire everybody and save a lot of money, but on the losses, I guess. At any rate, those items. Oh, one other item quickly though on aquatics. The gentleman who stood here earlier during public comments suggested spending more money to put in a bathhouse or do something up at the covered pool. Now, with a $211,000 loss, that's approaching golf, but we don't pay much attention to aquatics because it's kind of, I guess, it came on so suddenly we haven't had time to absorb all these losses mentally. But when the covered pool was originally discussed way back, 3, 4, 5 years ago, whatever it was a guy down here from Baltimore that supposedly was an expert on running pools, who some committee brought in, and he said there aren't enough people in all of Worcester County to run a covered pool profitably. That was he said. That's what he said. So I think this covered pool loss, which goes into aquatics, is going to last indefinitely. That's a white elephant that's never going to go away. Or maybe it's a red elephant. But anyway, the combined losses on all these business amenities, $542,600. And most of that less was planned. We planned to fail. $3.25 per household. Well, that may be so less on the total when you look at the budget, but I think people are more concerned about actuals than budgets. And $542,000 could be better spent than throwing it down a sewer, and it's growing. And I'll be done in a second here, Bill. The beach parking has traditionally brought in enough money to offset all operational losses. Some years back, brought in more than enough money to offset our operational losses. This year, the profit or the net on the beach club parking, $340,000 operational profit. Okay. Now, at one time that covered even more than we lost on our business amenities. But just like that graph that Bob showed with golf, everything else, the same thing is happening with losses. That $340,000 in beach club parking is now dwarfed by the $542,000 operational loss. So what I'm saying is that our losses just keep mounting, and we keep talking. And quite frankly, I've sat in this room for many years, I know Tom Stouse has, much more than I have, and listened to Dan Stikursky, any number of people who were president or board members talk about golf and what we're going to do. And all the talk has, in the end, resulted in a spiraling upward of losses and a spiraling down of membership. But we'll continue, from my point of view, to effectively do the same thing we're doing 5-10 years ago. We're talking about it, committees, appointments, if the community is willing to accept it, and let me finish with this. I think the community is, because no one's complaining. I think you could raise this assessment $100, you get a few people hollering and screaming, but in the end, nobody would be no revolution here. I said to somebody the other day, raise it $500, buy that $9 million building down the end of the point. I mean, what's the difference? So, I guess what I'm saying is that all these losses, in the end, are meaningless because nobody is interested. Nobody's interested.
Okay.
That wouldn't do it.
That's it.
You need more than 500 person.
I think there are certain things, Joe, if I may respond. I believe you're correct in some ways, but I think we're going to have a point where they're going to become interested, and we need to take action before action is imposed on us on certain things. Okay. So, any other public comments? Questions from the press? The press is fully enlightened?
Look at Tony. Have you ever seen anybody more enlightened than that?
Come on, Charlene.
I look like the Buddha, I guess that counts.
What time's the dinner tonight?
Huh?
What time's the dinner tonight with the commissioners?
What time's the dinner tonight?
5, no, that's tomorrow night, 6.
6.
6 o'clock?
6. All right, so unless there's an objection then, this meeting is adjourned.
Good boy.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.